city or a town, a frown. The business of a crown, of the living that abounds, of the church and the announcements. It's doing what counts. The underground sound in a city or a town, a frown. The business of a crown, of the living that abounds, of the church and the announcements. It's doing what counts. The underground sound is the voice within, to give ear to the spirit and to flee from sin, to live for Jesus and the praise of Him, by not selling out for the praise of men, to do whatever it takes, no matter what the cost, to keep pushing up the weight, carrying the cross, straight bench pressing sin, defend the word that lacks, and your best mention Him, or then you're gon' die. Cause the underground sound in a city or a town, the business of a crown, of the living that abounds, of the church and the announcements. It's doing what counts. The underground sound in a city or a town, the frown.
Hello. Looks good. Testing.
Hello?
Hey, Travis.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Oh, it's going all right.
Right on. Hey, thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so I just wanted to get some information from you. First, what is your MMA record? Because you have the most MMA fights of anyone in history, right?
Yeah, there's a lot on the internet that I don't count. Like, I don't count those, like, pancrase matches on my MMA record, because, like, I can't punch in your face. You're really limiting my ability to beat you. Because I used to do a bunch of those way back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I believe my actual MMA record is 250 wins, 46 losses, I think, and like 7 draws.
So a good 300 fights.
Yeah, and I had won no contest in there too. You can't forget that.
So what? You started out in wrestling, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I did. I wrestled my entire life, but I thought I was a badass because I did karate too. I watched the movie Bloodsport, and I was going to be in the Kumite. And I thought I was such a badass for knowing karate, but every time I got into a fight, if it was a tougher fight, I took him right to the ground and fist pounded him. So, but that was karate, of course. So, I was so proud of my karate background, but it was really wrestling that was my strongest attribute.
So when did you start wrestling, and when did you start karate?
I started wrestling in 4th grade, and I started karate in 3rd grade.
And how frequently were you doing both of those at the same time, and training every day, or what did that look like?
As a kid?
Yeah.
I didn't do shit. I went to wrestling practice. I went to karate. I think it was once a week, maybe.
Okay, so karate was once a week.
It wasn't a lot.
How long did you continue the karate?
I just saw as a teenager, maybe like 17, 16. Then, it was just time consuming at that point. I already had a black belt, so I didn't care about anything else. Getting more strikes as a black belt was always far more difficult.
Oh, so you did achieve a black belt, though. So you're a black belt in karate.
Yeah. 2nd degree in American Kempo Karate.
And then how long did you wrestle?
Well, since fourth grade, and I still. Do you remember Mike Van Arsdale?
Yes.
He was a great wrestler, and I was a good wrestler in high school. But I always skipped school, and I always got cut at semester. And so, like, I'd always, from my 10th grade year until my senior year, I would always get cut at semester. And the guy we had a great wrestling team, so I was always varsity, and the guys one weight above me and one weight below me were amazing wrestlers. One was a 3-time state champion, and another one took third, I believe, third twice, maybe. I don't know, he was a great wrestler too. And so the guy that wrestled underneath me, of course, he couldn't beat them, and he couldn't beat me. And in fact, I think I pinned him in like 30 seconds every time we did our tryouts. But both years he went on, he placed 5th in state, 3rd in state. So I really fucked up my skipping school, but I didn't give a shit. I was young.
So is that just basically what people do in Iowa? Is they become wrestlers?
Well, I mean, yeah, we were. If you're a wrestler, if you play basketball, you're a pussy.
All right, so you're from Waterloo, right?
Well, Cedar Falls. I was born in Waterloo. I don't want to claim that town. It's pretty disgusting.
Is that where? I'm not sure on the history and stuff, but is that where Dan Gable was from too, or?
Yeah, Dan Gable was. He was one grade below my dad. They went to the same high school together.
So the culture in Iowa is just very much wrestling.
Oh yeah, that's what we do in the winter. We wrestle.
And so there's not.
Even I wrestled. Once I started getting to the M.M.A. and joining different camps and everything, I'd wrestle guys from across the country, and I wrestled guys who were, they'd like gone to state like California or out east and stuff, and a couple even one state, and they were awful wrestlers. I mean, just an average wrestler was better in Iowa was better than them. It just didn't have competition. So just the backbone here is why everybody was so tough. I mean, take a guy like Brock Lesnar. I mean, just all those UFC guys. I mean, even Daniel Cormier, Chuck Liddell, John Jones, all those guys were phenomenal wrestlers. Just that's their backbone and why they do so well.
Yeah, talking with wrestlers myself, I've always kind of thought that it seems like the conditions are just very brutal for wrestling. You're always like cutting weight, and you're always training really hard and competing a lot, and just the constant strain of a wrestling match. It seems like that just going through that pain all the time, it almost is maybe more valuable than even the technical skills that you acquire through wrestling. Would you say, I mean, that's true, or do you think the technical skills are more valuable?
Well, I mean, I tried to avoid the cut weight. I cut weight. I hated it. That's all it boiled down to. So I tried to stay at a weight where I didn't have to cut much. And but the thing about wrestling is, it is always active. I mean, you get called for stalling if you stop moving. So you've got to constantly move moving. So it's a pretty brutal sport that you've always got. It requires a lot of conditioning.
And so did you so you really, was it your dream to do the Kumite like you said? Is that like, that was kind of like your vision?
I believe that was real, and I was definitely going to do it. I watched Bloodsport like when it first came out in 1987, and I was like, I told everybody I was going to do that. I remember going to like the public library trying to find ways to like get into the tournament because there was no internet back in those days, and so I was trying to find information on it, and I legitimately tried to find out how to get into it, just because it was fun.
So how did MMA come into your life, and how did that present itself? And I mean, how that must have been really great for you to have that, because that was your dream.
Well, I watched one of my buddies rented UFC 3 on pay-per-view, And he told me about it. He's like, "Oh man, you got to watch this." And like, I'll never forget though, because the feed was like messed up, and it cut in right in the middle of the Keith Hackney Emmanuel Yarborough fight. So I mean, here the first thing I ever saw was this 600-pound dude fighting this karate guy, and then after watching that, I'm like, I can fucking do this shit. And I remember telling him, I'm like, I'll be in the UFC within 3 years. He's like, bullshit. It wasn't 3 years. I was in the UFC within 5. So he didn't believe I'd do it.
So you knew, you're like, I have to do this.
Yeah, that was my plan. I mean, that's all I wanted to do. After watching that, I was a really, really good baseball player, and that was a plan as well. Was pursuing a career as a professional baseball player. But after watching that UFC, it was baseball took a back seat to it. I still play. I still enjoyed the sport, but all I want to do is punch people in the face.
So did you get in a lot of street fights and stuff like that? I mean, you're comfortable fighting, obviously, or was it more of just something you envisioned?
No, I mean, I was, I got used a lot. I beat up a lot of people I probably shouldn't have, because all somebody had to do was come running and tell me so-and-so said something, and they got beat up, and then I asked questions afterwards. I mean, I beat up lots of people who deserved it too.
So you were just looking for fights, excuse to get in a fight.
Well, I wasn't a douchebag about it, but I mean, I didn't pick them, but you looked at me cross-eyed, you got punched in the face. So,
yeah.
I mean, it didn't take much, just because I like fighting, not because I was a bully.
Is that kind of
the... Go beat up some guy that I knew I could.
Is that kind of the culture there in Iowa? Is that, do people fight a lot? Is that
No, there's pussies everywhere.
Oh, really?
Everyone's a pussy. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter where you're from. I mean, in the tougher neighborhoods, they're pussies. They just got guns. In other places, it's. I mean, yeah. I was willing to do it. I don't know how many times I had my friends that were. It was supposed to be my friends versus a big group of people, and it usually just ended up being me versus a big group of people. And my friends watching. So. I mean, people still remember it. I mean, everybody's some badass street fighter. I mean, you always hear about that one tough street fighter, but all anybody ever remembers is they saw him sucker punch some drunk dude in the bar once. He's tough forever because of it.
What is in Iowa? What is Iowa like? I've never been there, so I'm trying to get your back.
Crazy right now.
It's snowing.
No, there's nothing. Corn. I mean, there's nothing here. I like Iowa though. I mean, but we have no professional sports teams. No attractions whatsoever. Corn.
And so I think I read in an article that are you a truck driver? Is that something you do as well?
Well, it's just something that I did for fun. But then it's something I picked up doing. I like it. I mean, I don't do the over-the-road stuff at home every day, but I like driving trucks.
So were you when you started fighting? How old were you when you started fighting?
18.
So you were straight out of high school, or?
I was still in high school. I remember my first time I won a fight. I brought the VHS tape to school and let everybody watch it.
How did you get a fight at 18?
Well, I used to lie about my age to do the tough man competitions. I'd use my older brother's ID. And there was a tough man competition. As soon as I turned 18, I got into it. And I didn't know about other events going on. And there was a guy in the tough man that told me he was fighting in something called the Quad City Ultimate. And I'm like, what's that? He's like, what's UFC in the Quad Cities? And I'm like, well, I didn't know that came here. And then I saw him again a few months later at the next tough man, and he said he's telling me about his fight. He lost, and he's telling me he did good. And the promoter of the tough man gave me the number of the guy who promoted the Quad City Ultimates, which was Monty Cox, who back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I mean, he managed I think at one point he had 3 UFC champions, 2 were current UFC champions that he managed. and he gave me his number, and I called him, and that's where it all began.
So at 18 years old, you connected with Monty Cox?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you had a manager straight out the bat.
What's that?
So you had a manager right out the gate.
Well, I mean, he wasn't really my manager. I mean, he just promoted fights, so he didn't manage anybody at that time. There weren't. I mean, the whole fight scene has changed so much. There were so many events in the late '90s, but there weren't very many fighters. So I remember we used to we had a big group of us, and we travel around the Midwest, and we just go show up at these events. And they'd be in other states, and it'd be a guy from Iowa versus a guy from like Ohio at an event in Illinois. I mean, it's just because people were going to come to fights. They didn't care who was fighting. So they always do really well, even though there are no locals. And I mean, it's nothing like that anymore.
So did you, when you started fighting, were you just doing like your wrestling training and then you had your karate background, or did you start training?
Well, I remember my first fight. I had no idea what the guard was. I took the guy down. I fought another karate fighter, and so I thought I was going to beat him just based on that. And he kicked me. He dropped me with a kick to my knee. So I got up and I took him down. And when I took him down, he went to the guard. So I thought I was like winning. And then he scooted out from underneath me and took my back. And I mean, it ended up being Dave Strasser. He was a good fighter too. He fought the UFC a couple times as well. And but yeah, he took my back, and I mean, I was comfortable there because I wrestled. There's no way I was going to turn over. And then he sat there and punched the back of my head for a few minutes, and then pulled my hair and put me over a choke.
So what was your mindset after that fight then?
Well, I was never going to lose again. That was my plan. I couldn't believe I lost because I legit thought I was a badass. But I fought again actually fought the first ever sanctioned M.M.A. fight in Iowa 2 months later, a month and a half later. And they actually didn't even want to sanction it because we were both so young, because it was such a brutal sport. And I won by a guillotine choke, but all I remember is I was trying to dig my fingers into his throat. I didn't know it was a guillotine choke.
What year was that?
1996.
96. So the sport was really new still, right? Because it just started in 93. So it's 3 years old.
Yeah, I mean, all they had at that time was, there weren't even like small shows like that. There was UFC, right around there, IFC started, and there was that Extreme Fighting, like the pay-per-view shows, and there were just a couple of small promotions, but not many.
And so did you make some adjustments after that first fight? And like, were you like, okay, I got to learn this, the guard and stuff, or?
Well, yeah, me and my buddy, all we did was we trained, and I had every VHS tape of the UFC and watched that, and then I forget who even did it. There was a big handbook, and it was like really popular for several years that somebody put together with all the jiu-jitsu moves, because everybody caught on that jiu-jitsu was really necessary to win. And I mean, it was a time too, like again, the sport, a lot of people don't realize where mixed martial arts comes from, but in those days you actually could fight a guy who really was strictly taekwondo or boxing or something, who had no idea what he was doing on the ground. So I mean, yeah, so I mean, with my wrestling background, I mean, that was what helped me. And then once I picked up some submission holds, it all kind of came into place.
Was your training partner, was he a fighter too, or was he just one of your buddies?
Well, he was one of my buddies, but he'd done karate as well, and I mean, he wasn't into sports, which was funny that he actually enjoyed MMA like he did, but he liked karate and this martial arts. So, but then we quickly hooked up with some other local guys, some other wrestlers and stuff, and kind of put together our own little camp. And then shortly after that, I moved to Davenport and started training with Pat Militich and all them fighters, and that's where everything kind of like snowballed.
So how old were you when you moved there and started training with those guys?
20. Because what had happened was, I mean, the reason I had so many fights was like, how do you have so many fights? It's like, what? I mean, I'd fight anybody, and Monty knew I would. So Monty give me fights all the time. I fought on every show. And I used to like it. I used to request to be the first fight of the night because I was also a fan. So I would get my fight out of the way, and then I'd watch the rest of the event. And so I would fight all these guys, and then I mean, I wasn't thought of as anybody good, and I actually started to realize I'm not that good. Like, if anybody knew any submission holds, I'd get caught. Like, I got beat by a triangle choke twice in like 1 month. And it's like every time I won a fight, I lost a fight. But then I won a tournament in June of '97 that I wasn't even expected to get past the first round. I fought. I beat Matt Anderson, who had fought the UFC, and then I beat Dennis Reed, who was one of the top guys around at that time. He's actually the one that told me about Monty Cox. And I knocked him out in 30 seconds, and right there was like where I was finally considered like a legit fighter, and that's when I decided to move to the Quad Cities to train with Pat.
So that was a heavyweight tournament that you won?
No, my first fight, I was only 175 pounds, maybe.
Oh, really?
That fight right there was 195 pounds and under. I didn't fight heavyweight till like 1999.
Oh, okay. When you moved to Davenport, like how did that look? Like did you have a job lined up? Did you have a place to stay at? I mean, how do you just up and move?
Well, that's what I mean. I was a kid, so you crashed somebody's couch, and what had happened was another fighter asked someone to come live with him and train down there. He's the one that suggested it. It wasn't like my idea. He was like, "You're good. You come down here and train." So I could stay with him, and so he had a spare bedroom, and I stayed with him, and I got a job as like a bouncer at a local bar, and just train. That's all I did. I was a kid. I didn't have anything else to do.
Oh, wow. And then so were you professional right away?
Yeah, there was no amateur stuff back then. I mean, it was only pro. So there were lots of guys that probably shouldn't have been allowed in the ring, but if they needed a guy, they threw him in there. So, I mean, there wasn't much at the start. I mean, there wasn't much to being a pro fighter, but you only got one fight. So.
Now was Matt Hughes and Tim Sylvia and all those Robbie Lawler?
Those guys all started out as amateurs. They moved to Davenport like I think right around 2000 or so. After they had kind of like made a distinction between amateurs and pros. I think both Matt and Mark Hughes and Tim Sylvia all started out in the amateurs like that Monty Cox did.
And so was I just can't remember, but was Pat Miletich, was he the world champion at the time then?
I believe so. I think he won the title, and he won it shortly after. I think he won it in '98. He won the UFC title. But I mean, Pat started out 15-0 when I first started fighting. Pat was always the main event. He won a big tournament in Chicago a couple of times, and he was the guy.
So that's why you went there. You wanted to train with him, and you wanted to do this.
Yeah, it was the best. All the best fighters were there, and there was a group out of Omaha, and I mean, Davenport was closer, but Omaha was like Jeremy Horn, and he might be the only one you'd even know from there. But they had a group of fighters out of Omaha who were really tough.
And so, what was the training like? Was it like a boxing class, or was it just like MMA?
Oh, there was no structure to it. Not at that time. I mean, it was just kind of everybody get together and we grappled or sparred. There was no real. We learned off each other. There wasn't a structure yet. It was just kind of it was a military school, but it was just starting. It just started its own school. So it was just basically at that time just a group of guys get together and train him.
So were there? I mean, you've probably met some really crazy people. Were there some pretty crazy guys there?
Well, I was just actually telling you the story the other day. Like, they were like talking about wanting to quit fighting, and basically the problem they had was that they do great practice, but that for some reason they can't put together in the ring. I'm like, oh, you're a gym fighter, and they never even heard of that. It's like, fuck, we had gym wrestlers. I mean, there were guys who in wrestling practice were animals, but once you got into a mat, they didn't put it together. There were lots of fighters like that too. I was always better on game day, but there were lots of guys who weren't. There was a guy at the military camp named Steve Rusk, and he murdered everybody. I mean, when Matt Hughes was champ, Tim Sylvia, all those guys, he'd kill them all. But they'd always try and talk him into fighting. Not even sure if he even had a fight. I know he had a grappling match, and we're like, oh, well, he'll kill these guys, and he'll lost. So, I mean, some guys, they're animals in practice, but just can't put it together in the ring. I trained with a guy, too, when I moved back home. So I moved back to Waterloo in 1998, and I was here for Halls, so I never lived in Waterloo. But started training there. There's a guy that was training with us, and he got to the point in practice he'd kill me. And but then he'd go out and fight, he'd get beat most of the time. It's like, what's wrong with this guy? But he was the same thing as a wrestler. He was always like a 1-point match with a guy in high school who went on to be like national champion. You know, they always had close matches in practice, but on the actual mat, that guy did good, and he just didn't put together.
So what do you think that is? Like, what do you think's going on there?
Well, I mean, I think some people, it's not even nerves, it's just their mentality. I think some people think too much, and, you know, they doubt themselves in the ring, and actually, oh, well, this ain't going to work, and no, I better not do that, it's not going to work. And so they just don't flow like they do in practice, where there's nothing at stage.
Oh, so it's just a mental thing.
Oh, it's totally a mental thing. That has nothing to do with their physical abilities.
And so what was your mentality like? Because, I mean, to me, it seems like definitely...
I didn't give a shit. I want to fight.
And that just never left you even for a moment of your life.
Well, I mean, later in life it certainly did, but back in those days, fuck, I wanted to fight. I didn't care if I won. That's why I had so many fights. I mean, I was a durable guy, and I fought anybody anytime, and I would contact promoters and ask for fights. I'd tell them, give me their toughest guy. I don't care.
Now, do you think is that a physical gift you were born with to be that durable? Because I don't think that most people could go through all of that.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something you can train yourself. It's just like the ability to take a punch. You know, actually, if anybody, you know, they watch the Chuck Liddell fight, that's a perfect example. And it happened to me too throughout my career. Was he used to be able to hit me in the head with a baseball bat, and I was fine. And I always tell people, it's like my first 300 fights, never got knocked out, got dropped maybe once or twice, and I only got cut twice. In my last 15 fights, I've been knocked out once, I've been dropped probably 5 or 6 times, and I've been cut 5 or 6 times. I think you just get a holes that wears you down. Chuck Liddell, he's been knocked out, I think, his last 5. There's another good fighter named Travis Few, who he's a great fighter, but he just somebody caught his chin, and then the more he fought, the easier it became to knock him out. And then he got to the point where he was getting knocked out by guys who he should have killed. And you know, that's what I've realized about myself too. Is you know, you get hit a few times, it catches up with you. You get old.
Now, Travis, that's a guy that you fought before, right?
Yeah, I fought Travis a few times.
And he's a very intimidating looking guy. I mean, did that intimidate? I mean, that would be intimidating to me.
No, when I first fought him, I actually should have beat him. I just never trained. Because that was the thing. It's like from like 2000 to like 2007, I never went to the gym. I'm badass. I just fought and had fun, and I didn't train. So when I fought you the first time, he was just a big ripped wrestler, and had I trained a little bit, I had to beat him. But I gassed out in like 2 minutes, and he won a decision because I couldn't do anything because I was exhausted. And then I fought him again a couple years later, and I half-ass trained, which meant maybe went to the gym twice a week instead of none. And I lost a split decision, but then I fought him again. 5, 6, 7 years. No, not that far. Maybe 5 years later, and by then he'd actually become like a far more well-rounded fighter, and he was a lot tougher then. That time he cut me open really bad, and they had to stop it.
So you fought him 3 times.
Yeah.
And so you're saying for years you didn't even train?
No, I didn't train at all from 2000 to 2007 or 8. I went to the gym half-assed it. I didn't try hard. The only fight you ever see there, I maybe saw a gym once a week at the most, and it wasn't hard. I went there and wrestled just for something to do.
During that time period, though, were you fighting a lot?
Yeah, quite a bit actually. I still fought a lot. I'm making always usually 15 to 20 times a year.
So you're fighting 15, 20 fights a year, and you're not even training.
That was the nut.
Do you think that might have helped you a little bit in terms of like your body's ability to take it? Because I'm really interested how you could fight that.
I never got hurt even as a kid. I've always been a durable guy. Even now, 41 years old, and I still don't get hurt very often.
And so originally you said you had you just wanted to fight. Would you just fight anyone? is there anyone you would have not fought at some point, or did you even consider that, or did you ever look at your career?
I didn't care. I wanted to fight everybody.
So you never like had that kind of mindset, like the strategic way of going about it, like
I didn't like watching because that's even like later on in my career, even now, I don't want to watch people's videos because guys they just weren't always the same fighter, and so I've seen plenty of guys that the way they fought, their performance varied from fight to fight. So I never watched their videos. I fought my fight and knew what I knew about him, and sometimes it scared me. I fought a guy named John Marsh in Hawaii, and I was told he was a phenomenal stand-up fighter. And stand-up was awful. I kept catching him, but as soon as I catch him, I try and take him down, and I take him down, and then because he was realizing what I was doing by, I think it was the second or third round, he caught on that I was just going to try and take him down. And so what he ended up doing was he sprawled and ended up getting me in like a heel hook. But his stand-up was awful. But I was told to take him down. That's what happens when I listen to somebody. So I didn't watch any of his videos, so I was told he did.
Oh. One thing that surprises me from hearing that is how much of a winning fighter you are, because I would think that most fighters that take that route would probably lose a lot more. Why do you think you were so successful?
I fought a lot of bones. That's why people have so many fights, but in the Midwest on shooting for a 10-year period on any given weekend, just in the state of Iowa alone, there was 3 or 4 events. And I was always a draw here, so I always got asked to fight. And a lot of times, they were tournaments. In 1998 alone, I got like 43 fights. And they were almost always tournaments, and I won every tournament I fought. And I lost one of the tournaments in the finals, but you were guaranteed 3 fights. But, there were guys just with my number of fights and stuff, it was just like beating up a dude who's a newbie. Basically, the guy's had 2 or 3 fights, of course, going to win.
So you were just outmatching these guys.
Yeah, I mean, just naturally tougher than a lot of the dudes I fought. And there's always that. I mean, even all those years I was fat and out of shape and didn't train, and there wasn't nobody that just walked right through me. And I fought a lot of like legitimate fighters.
Yeah.
I mean, in that time period, I fought. But you see, from 2000 to 2007, I fought Ben Rothwell when he was like IFL's top guy, and I fought him on a week's notice and gave him the toughest fight he had in the IFL. And I didn't train.
Yeah, I mean, that guy's a monster. I mean, that's one of the top fighters in the world, obviously. The first time I heard of you, actually, I remember because I wasn't too aware of MMA, all that's out there and everything. But I saw the video. It was really popular when you like choke slammed a guy. Right?
Oh, get to hear the backstory? The backstory is 100 times better than the fight.
What is the story? Because I remember that, and that's how I was introduced to you. I saw that and I was like, man, that guy, that looked crazy, you know.
Well, I actually wrote a book.
Oh, you did?
I wrote one. It's like 500 some pages long. I've had a million fights, and I have good fight stories. I mean, I believe any fight fan would like it. I'm just still waiting on the publishing process. But I wrote about that. I write all these stories and throw some stories there and try and be funny. But I fought a tournament in Brazil, and I won the tournament in Brazil as an 8-man tournament. And I was supposed to fly back from Brazil to Iowa, and I was going to be in Iowa for 2 days. And then I was going to fly to Salt Lake City and fight in a tournament out there. And, to me, that, 2 days rest was fine. I was a nut. And what had happened is I won the tournament, but then they stuck us in a taxi who drove us through the back country of Brazil for like 8 hours, which probably in the U.S. would have been a 2-hour drive, but it's pretty awful there. And we ended up missing our flight, and I had to stay in Brazil for like 2 extra days. And this was pre-9/11. So once I got to Miami, I went to the ticketing counter and explained that I'm supposed to be going to Utah, and they just sent me right there. And I landed at 5 p.m. and the fight is at like 7. And I did my video shoot real quick, and there was a reporter from a M.M.A. publication at that time, and we went out to eat, and I got back, and the promoter was Monty Cox. He's like, well, this guy wants to see you weigh in. And I was always under 200 pounds. I jumped on there with my clothes on and everything. I was like 202. I was like, shit. And the guy's like, hey, he didn't make weight. And the promoter tried to like talk him out of it. He wasn't my first round opponent. Well, he got my first round opponent riled up, where it's camp to where they wanted me to make 200 pounds. So I went and ran around for a little bit and everything, and my knee was kind of hurt. I just I just couldn't cut it. I cut like half a pound. I was like, fuck it, whatever, I won't fight. And then what they did was they took Dennis Reed, who was supposed to fight the Taekwondo guy, and they put him in the tournament. And the guy we was in the back room doing like the Van Damme splits on chairs, like it was a nut. And he weighed 170 pounds, and Monty was like, will you fight this guy? He's like, I'll fight anybody. He's like a nitrate black belt in Taekwondo, which means nothing. And Monty, we all knew better. And Monty was like, just don't kill him. I was like, all right. And I mean, I really didn't try to. And the thing was, it was where the Utah Jazz played. I mean, there's like 10,000 people there. So I went out there and he jumps over my head. And like, what's this fucking idiot doing? And I took him down, and he's like trying to like get a headlock on me. So my plan was, like I can't punch him because I said I wouldn't. And it's like, well, what do I do? And like I can just put him in an armbar. I'm like, I'll pick him up and slam him. Now I'll put him in an armbar. The crowd like slams and they don't hurt you. Well, I picked him, slammed me, held onto my head, and they ended up like slamming him on top of his and broke his neck. And I knew he was hurt right away, started screaming bloody murder, and that was it. I didn't realize it would get such a cult following, and even today, everybody knows that fight.
Yeah, it looked. I mean, because it looked like he was gonna die or something. I mean, he looked like a fish on the ground or something.
Well, he was. I mean, what's funny too is about a year later, I fought out in Utah again. I fought Heath Herring, and I beat Heath Herring, and by then I'd moved up to heavyweight, and so I was weighing probably about 230, and this guy comes up to me after the fight, he had the belt buckle on, and he's like, "Hey, remember me?" And I'm like, "No," and he's like, "Yeah, we fought last year," and I was like, "Oh, okay," and he's like, "I want a rematch." I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, but first I'm gonna kick fucking Frank Shamrock's ass, and I'm gonna fight you." And at that time, Frank Shamrock was the best fighter in the world. And I was like, all right, that's fun with that one. And I just walked away, and that was it. And I'm pretty sure he never did anything ever again.
Wow, so he
Frank Shamrock,
he had no sense of himself then.
Well, there's lots of guys like that. At least the only thing I'll give guys like that credit for is at least they have the balls to get in the ring. There's lots of guys that have they think they're a lot tougher than they are, but they don't have the balls to even get in the ring. At least this guy would do that, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big. That's true. I mean, because it's probably a very, very small percentage of people that would actually get in the ring and fight.
Well, I mean, that's when I was younger, there was this group. I mean, this is the late '90s. There were it was like Chris Brennan. I mean, I don't know if you remember him. I mean, that's what sucks about this sport is names die out so fast. I remember I used to.
Was it he was the West Side Strangler, right? Yeah, I do remember him.
California, and and back in for years, everybody's like, "Who's the best fighter you ever fought?" And I'm like, Dan Severn, and now everybody's like, "Who's that?" I mean, names die, and but at one time, Brennan was a tough guy, and I remember that was what they thought was funny was they'd go out to clubs, and if anybody claimed to be a fighter, they just walk and beat the shit out of them. And I mean, you get that all the time. I mean, I still. I decided to be funny about it rather than be a dick. I don't, if guys try and tell me they fought or somebody asks me if I know such and such because they're a fighter, because I get that all the time still. And I don't follow the sport, so I don't discredit anything, but with a cell phone, it's like, I can look them up right now. And I mean, just even recently, like 2 years ago, this girl stopped me and she's like, "Hey, you fight," or whatever. She was like, "Oh, my friend fights. He's from here in his small town," and told me his name. I was like, "Oh yeah." She's like, "He's undefeated. He's 12-0." I'm like, "Oh, awesome." So I looked him up and I couldn't find him. I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." Well, so I was sitting there and she's like, "Hey, here's the guy," and there's a big black dude. He's a big fat black dude, and in a small town in Iowa where you don't see black guys, so that probably already made it tough. And he walked up, he's like, "Oh yeah," she says, "You a fighter?" And I said, "Yeah, I fought a little bit." And he's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "You fought?" He's like, "Yeah, 12-0." And I was like, "Really, huh?" Like, "Where do you fight at, man?" He's like, "Oh, I fight all over the place, all over the world." And I was like, "Really? Beat anybody good?" He's like, "Yeah, you know that Travis Fulton motherfucker, claiming a UFC fighter?" He's like, "I beat his ass." I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "He's pretty tough." He's like, "Oh God, I fucking smoked him." And I was like, "Really?" I'm like, "I'm Travis." And he's like, "What?" No, it wasn't you, man. It wasn't you. Must have been someone else claiming they were you or something. I was like, "Yeah, maybe, I don't know." And then I was like, "Well, where was you fighting? How much you paid?" And she said, "You make like $5,000 a fight. And you fight like a band of gas stations and shit." That's what she was telling me. And he's like, "Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's all over the place." I was like, "Really? Can you know any promoters, man? The $5,000 a fight? That's awesome." And he could tell I was fucking with him. And I just tried to nicely fuck with him. And he's like, "Yeah, man, I gotta go. That was the end of that.
That's hilarious.
There's no point in calling him. I mean, it's more funny to do what I just did than to funk him out or call him on his bullshit.
But he was telling you how he beat you.
Well, I've heard that several times. I've had people tell me to my face they beat me. Really? Where was I at?
So you fought Chris Brennan?
No. He, Chris. I fought all the time. For some reason, even though these guys would live in different states, I fought so much I would see a lot of guys a lot. And Chris Lilly's from California, but he's a lot smaller than I am. He fought military a few times. And they fought 3 times. So I'd seen Chris, and then I fought on California a bunch, and I was fighting in events where I'd seen him quite a bit back in that time period.
Yeah, I remember him because I had his like submission DVD that he made. It was like one of the first ones I remember being out there.
Oh, he was one of those guys. He was the man. That's just what's so weird about the sport is just how these guys die out, and just everybody forgets them.
So some of the names I got some names from your record. I wanted to hear the story of these fights. They're ones I recognize, and I haven't forgot them at all. The first one was Brad Kohler, who he was this humongous, like, had to be on steroids monster. Yeah, and didn't he like bounce up and down and then just like one punch knock out some guy in the UFC?
Yeah, he knocked out Steve Judson. At one time, because I fought Brad Kohler in an event, it was bare knuckle at like a gym in Indiana, and it was like no time limit, and we fought for 52 minutes. And I just finally tapped. It was going. He kept taking me down, and I couldn't beat him. He had won in the tournament. We fought in the first round, and he went like 7-0, and then he finally lost for the first time in the UFC against Trey Telligman. But he had that knockout of Steve Judson in the UFC, which was pretty popular. And he fought in Japan, and he was like a tougher guy. But then it kind of turned out to be a little bit dick. So I always wanted to fight him again, and finally got the chance back in 2011, which was 14 years later, knocked him out in a minute. I haven't heard anything from him since. I don't know if he even fought since.
Oh, really?
Well, I got my chance.
Yeah. Okay, another one is Jeremy Horn. Well, originally I thought that Jeremy Horn had the most fights out of anyone because he has a ridiculous amount of fights, and apparently that is not true.
Well, Jeremy Horn, he's one of those guys. Jeremy and Travis View are two of the most. They get no credit for what they've done. They're both very, very legit fighters, yet nobody knows about them. And I'm more well known than both those guys, and they're both freaking animals. But Jeremy, he was just a durable guy too, and I fought him. He was a star too. I think he was like 7-2 or something, which was a good record at that time. The first time we fought, and I put him in a guillotine choke, and he turned like black. I choked him so hard, and he even told me after the fight. Well, years later, we became friends. Not even years later, about a year later, he was part of our little package group that traveled around and fought all the time. But he told me that he been fighting anybody but me, he would be attacked to the choke. But I beat his brother, who was Matt Anderson, like 2 months earlier. The other guys at their gym, they had 2 other guys from their gym who had beat me before, back when I wasn't as good. So he wasn't about to lose to me. And then we fought again, like the next year. And that one was, that first fight was a 15-minute draw, and then it was outside in the rain. So, we couldn't really do anything. Then we fought again a year later, and it was a 20-minute draw. And then we fought again, 7, 8, 9 years later, I was out of shape, and my plan was I went out there and gave it my all in the first round. I was so gassed, and my corner, and I told my corner guy, I'm like, if he gets the mount on me, I'm like, just throw the towel, I'm not going to tap. And he already said he's not going to, put me in a submission hold. For some reason, he, started to hate me, from what I was told, although I thought we were friends. But from what I understand, I think he hated me because I had talent, and I didn't train, and he was disappointed more and hated me.
Oh, so he's very crafty, right? I look at him and think of a guy that's very skilled, but not. He didn't necessarily have like any crazy physical attributes other than being very tough. And so you think that he trained really hard, and so he kind of like didn't
Well,
like.
he was just such a fan of the sport. He loved submission holds, and I mean, he wasn't strong, but he was just weird. Like, I mean, I know he fought Couture and took Randy Couture down. I mean, he was a guy who he never wrestled in his life or anything, but he was crafty and picked things up, and that's how he became so tough. Is just he was slick submission holds in and stuff. I mean, you never knew what he was going to do. He's so well rounded. He knocked Forrest Griffin out with a head kick. He beat Chael Sonnen 3 times. I mean, he almost beat. It was a month after we fought to a draw that he fought Frank Shamrock when Frank Shamrock was the top guy in the world and almost beat him. And Frank had just smoked everybody he fought. Horn was beating him, and then he fought Horn in D-Bar. And it was funny because, I mean, Shamrock was the UFC's guy at that time, and that was, on the day before commissions and everything. And I was told that before the last round, the judges went over to the UFC matchmaker and they're like, what do we do? This goes to timeline. Who do we vote for? And they're like, well, vote for who fucking wins. They thought since Shamrock was getting killed, but he was their guy, what were they going to do? So
they wanted him to remain the face of the organization, kind of.
Well, these guys they didn't know what they were supposed to do because he was the face of the organization. I mean, before commissions, I had a fight. Once I fought a guy who was a national champion wrestler, and he was in my fat and out of shape days, but I beat him up for 3 rounds, and the judges were Matt Hughes, Jeremy Horn, and Monty Cox, and I won. They gave me the fight. Well, they handed the scorecards to the ring announcer, and the promoter came over and grabbed them, and he came back like a couple minutes later and just said, read this, and it says, Mike Radenoff wins by split decision.
What?
And there's nothing you can do about it. There were no commissions in those days.
Because they needed that guy to win or something?
Yeah, so my record is a loss. Jeremy Horn and Monty and Matt Hughes were the judges. I know what they scored it. So, because I asked him, like, how did you score it for him? I'm like, I won. And it happened again, too. I fought a guy in Atlanta, and I fought him in Minnesota in June of '98 and knocked him out. Then I fought him again in Atlanta, which is his hometown, in December of '98, and knocked him out again. And the referee was raising my hand, and the promoter jumped up in the ring and threw my hand down. He's like, you're disqualified. And I'm like, for what? He's like, oh, you knocked him out with illegal blows. And it's on my record as I lost my disqualification. I knocked him out. The ref was raising my hand. There's nothing you can do about it. There were no commissions.
Wow. That's crazy. I mean, I guess it's the fight game, though, right? It's like a lot of.
Well, I mean, there's going to be corrupt stuff. I mean, there's even corrupt stuff in ones that are like sanctioned. I've seen lots of fights that shouldn't have gone the way they did. But I mean, I don't even watch it anymore. It's just turned into a soap opera. You got that Conor McGregor, I think, is a disgrace. I mean, I get the theatrics of it, but I mean, dude, you're a millionaire. You're going to act like a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
That's stupid. Anybody believes that him and Mayweather didn't have a pre-fight agreement is a moron.
Yeah.
But I knew after 1 minute of the first round that fight was set up.
It was just a hustle for money.
Well, of course, they made a lot of it. Props to them. I know people who ordered that pay-per-view that never watched a fight in their life, or fight fans. So they sold it. So props for those guys.
Well, right there for me, when that fight was made, I was like, well, what's the point of having commissions? Because I thought they're there to not make mismatches. And this guy's 0-0 in boxing, and he's going to fight the best of all time. That doesn't make any sense, you know?
Well, I mean, even commissions now, like with my boxing career, I mean, I'm not a good boxer. I just look like I should be in there. And I got into boxing just by accident, basically. And but I'm on a list. They have a list that was created by just some guy who's on the commission. He's not even a commissioner in Pennsylvania, and it's a list that's given to different states, and some states, because I'm on this list, won't even like sanction me to box, and I've got to watch what states I were to box in because they'll suspend you indefinitely just because you're on this list.
What's the list
And,
about?
the list is just the people he believes should not be allowed to fight anymore. And the reasoning for me is I've had too many fights. And as you can tell, I'm still fairly articulate considering I've had 500 fights. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell I've passed every single neurological exam I've been given. I've been subjected to extensive neurological exams and performed better than young guys. So, I mean, it's stupid.
Have you ever been knocked out like a Chuck Liddell was knocked out or anything like that? Like a really...
just Andre Arlovsky. It's the only time. And you know what had happened too was I won the fight. I saw the scorecards. I won. I was ahead on all the scorecards, and there was 1 second left in the round, and he caught me at the head kick. And I don't remember what. I mean, obviously, I don't remember the end of the fight. All I can think about is they had a big, it was at a hockey rink, so they had the big scoreboard hanging in the middle of the arena, and all I can think of is I probably looked up at it. Because I remember looking up at it during the fight to see how much time was left in the round, and ate a nice head kick.
And so you were just out there.
Yeah, I knocked me out cold. I mean, it's never happened before, and hasn't happened since, but it sucks. I mean, it didn't hurt. Actually, getting dropped sucks way worse than that because getting dropped is horrible. I mean, it's like where the fuck am I? It's like the most confusing thing ever when you wake up and you're late for a school bus type thing.
Yeah.
I don't like it, but except for you're getting punched in the face while it's going on.
Yeah, you can
And
definitely
watch videos and you can't tell I'm even hurt. Like I've watched a few videos where I've been hurt by a shot, and I don't remember that part of the fight. But I'll watch the video. It's like I look like I'm there just fine. It's like I don't even remember that.
Now, were you hurt at all in that last fight against Jonathan Ivey?
No, he hurt me with the punch that he dropped me with, and I mean I don't remember it, but I watched the video, and I mean it. You know, I don't blame the ref. I wouldn't have stopped it. I looked like I was still defending myself, but I don't remember it.
Well, no, the way you had your legs up, I definitely thought you were okay because you had your legs up. I mean, you weren't like laying there limp or anything. You were defending for sure.
It stinks, you know. I mean, if honestly there was only like 10 seconds left in the round, I'd have probably been fine. I'd recouped in the corner and started the round over. But what sucked is I'd have lost the round based off that. But yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with the ref for not stopping. I don't think he did it. I don't think anybody had to stop that.
No.
But I was hurt. I legitimately was hurt. So.
Yeah, I was surprised by the whole thing with because he jumped off and tapped out because he thought that.
I mean, it was weird, you know. Like I've known Ivy since like the late '90s. I always thought he was such a dick, just because he was mean. I had no reason for thinking he was a dick except for he looked mean, he fought mean. So I assumed he was quiet. So I assumed he was like a dick, and so I never talked to him over the years. And then I fought him in a pancrase fight, which I don't count those on my record because it's a flat fight in California in like I don't know 2002 or 3 or something like that. And he tried to do a rolling knee bar, and I just sprawled and caught him in a Kimura. And what's weird when we fought this time around is he didn't try and take it to the ground. I said, why are you trying to stand up with me? I mean, you're a ground fighter. And then even on top of it, Ivy's he's a leg submission guy, and he dropped me the punch, but he didn't try and go for a leg lock. I mean, my leg and my guard was broken. My legs were up. He leg locked the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why he didn't do it, but I mean, it's whatever. At least I get to go out on a win.
Yeah.
So it's a shitty win, but I'll take it, I guess.
So what were the fights? What was it like in the cage with Jeremy Horn? Was it like did you have him on the wrestling and he kind of had you on the submissions, or like what was the experience like fighting him? Was it did it push you a lot?
We were actually styles make the fights, and Horn is he's one of those guys. I think I'm a tough guy for him to fight. I fought a guy who I fought him in I don't know, like 2005 and knocked him out in a minute. There's a guy named Brad Skolton, and then I fought him in 2012. It was my first fight after losing Arlovsky, and I won a split decision. I don't know. I couldn't get inside of him standing. I couldn't take him down, and I just beat him with a jab. I mean, I was a better stand-up fighter, but all I could do was land my jab over and over and over. And then I fought him again in 2016, and I won a unanimous decision. I was in a better shape, but still same thing. I just couldn't put him away. But then he'd go out there and fight other guys, get beat 30 seconds. For some reason, he was tough for me. And the same thing for Horn is I think I was just a tough guy for him.
Oh. How about Matt Lindland? What was that fight like?
Armbarred him in 2 minutes and he tapped and claimed he didn't.
Oh, really?
I think maybe happened with him in the UFC at Bustamante. I caught him in armbar in 2 minutes and he tapped out. And I let go of him. The ref stopped the fight and I stood up. He's a 21-year-old prick. And he's like, I didn't tap out. And I was like, fuck, I'll kick your ass again. And he ended up, there was no time limit. It was an IFC. And he ended up, that's what was funny once too was, he's a great wrestler. He kept taking me down and he caught me in a headlock choke. But what had happened was, I jumped to guard as he was taking me down. We landed on the back of my head, and that kind of rocked me a little bit. And when that happened, my guard broke for a second, and he took side mount and put me in a headlock, and I just kind of got claustrophobic, and that was it. But if that was in the UFC or anywhere else, or anywhere, with a commission, I'd have won in 2 minutes. Because he did tap out to the armbar.
Oh man, that sucks. So you didn't. You just said, okay, I'll keep going.
But I didn't care. I just wanted to fight. I was an asshole. I'm not baby, no shit. I mean, now if that would happen today, I said, fuck, this fight's good. But 21-year-old guy said, fuck, it was still 2 out of 3.
So you and Matt Lindland are really 1-1 right now.
I guess.
How about a Dan Severn? And I think I read that Dan Severn was one of the guys that you really looked up to.
Oh yeah, I remember Dan Severn was he was the main event the second time I fought. I remember I'd been watching him on the UFC, and I already walked by my stomach turned off. I was like, oh, this is Dan Severn. It was my hero. It was the first real big name fighter I'd ever seen in person. He was a celebrity. And there was a fight where he was going to be the main event in 1998 in Cedar Rapids. And he had just fought Jeremy Horn the year before. And they went to a draw, and Horn was like, oh, you're going to kill him. I'm like, awesome. And but no, that was the guy who was the strongest cocksucker I ever fought in my life. I mean, I weighed 200 pounds, and that don't matter. He's just so freaking strong. And he was so strong, he actually gassed me out. And that was the time I didn't get tired. I mean, I'd fought 30 and 50-minute fights at that time and didn't get tired. And Severn wore me out, and 10 minutes in, caught me in a key watch. But then I think when the second time we fought was in the WEC. It was the first ever WEC. And I was supposed to fight some dude and settle his fight in a DDP fight. Well, I was already set up. I was going to fight Severn in my hometown 2 months later. And the promoter of the event asked me if I wanted to fight Severn. And said he'd pay me a couple grand more. I was like, fuck yeah. I mean, I figured I had nothing to lose. And so that's what I planned on fighting. I guess he didn't even tell Dan he was fighting me. And like they told him like as the event started, I'd known for like a week, and so his manager came up to me and was like, "We're not gonna fight you." I was like, "Oh, you know," and she's like, "The promoter's like being a dick about it, and the other guys had already fought with each other, so it was like me and Dan don't get a fight." And they would refuse to pay him more money. I was already getting more money. And the agreement basically was I wouldn't knock him out. He wouldn't do any knees to my head on the ground. And he ended up like just winning a decision. But he was never in a position to knee me in the head. He kept taking me down, so I wasn't in a position to knock him out. so we had an agreement, but it wasn't. We didn't have to like utilize it. And there was a promoter who's the IFC promoter, and I mean, the IFC I had won their title a couple times, and they liked me. And after the fight, he was like, "I thought everybody liked Dan. I like Dan." And he was like, how'd you not knock that piece of shit out or whatever? Because I got the mounted position on him, and he rolled me. But I mean, I tried, and I was like, "Oh, we had an agreement." Beforehand, he's like, "An agreement?" I was like, "Yeah, I agreed not to knock him out." I mean, it's like 22 or 3. I didn't know any better. I didn't know if there was any like secrets. And he's like, "You did a work fight with that piece of shit." And what I didn't know that they didn't like Dan because Dan, his management group had taken a couple of casinos from the IFC and did their own events there. Like they renegotiated with them, and so they didn't like him. And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know this was like a big deal." And the promoter, man, this guy named Scott Adams, he fought the UFC once or twice, I think. And he calls me on he was supposed to take me to the airport that morning and catch my flight. And he calls my room at like 2 a.m. and he's like, "You did a work fight on my show." And I'm like, "No, that's not how it went." I tried to explain. He's like, "No, fuck that. Get your own ride home." And like hung up on me. I'm like, "What the hell?" And like, left me stranded. And I was like trying to call him back, then talk to the hotel, couldn't get a cab and everything. And so what ended up happening was his dad was in the lobby, and his dad picked up the ball for him, and I told him what had happened, and his dad took me to a nearby airport and bought me a plane ticket to catch my flight home out of his own pocket because his son was a dick.
Scott Adams, he's like a leg lock guy, right?
What?
He was like a leg lock guy or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember him, yeah.
But then afterwards, it got blown up into a big deal. And the IFC, the promoter who was mad at him was like, "Well, we're going to say you're under suspension, but then we're going to lift it on you because you agreed to, because you're the one that told us you guys had a work fight or something." And it's like, there were no commissions in those days, so your suspension means nothing. So the IFC suspended me and Dan Severn for our work fight because I told them that me and him had an agreement that he wouldn't knee me and I wouldn't punch him while standing. And they just blew it up out of proportion. And did some big thing where they're suspending us, which didn't affect us at all because there was no commission.
Because you could just go fight somewhere else then.
Yeah, nobody cared. And then I had a fight Dan in my hometown, and there was no time limit. We fought for 20 minutes, and I mean, because I got better at that time, and he probably got a little worse, and he couldn't submit me anymore. And that time with the time limit, there was no judges, so it was a draw. And then he got hurt by Pedro Hizzo, and they actually flew me out and wanted me to do a work fight with them, and I did let him beat me in a work fight. And I mean, it's just a show, no different than WF. There was no commissions. And he puts me in a rear choke and screams as I tap out frantically, but he's not really choking me.
So you're a pro wrestler too.
I did a couple of them. I never the worst fights in the ring, but there was that one. But as far as I knew, it wasn't even supposed to go on a record. So it's it was just a show for the crowd because he was hurt and he was the draw.
So you've done a few of those?
No, that was the only one I ever did.
Oh.
I mean, with him. But I know lots of work fights. there are quite a few fake ones out there that nobody knows about.
Yeah, I saw the one in Pride was Mark Coleman when he gets leg locked. It just
anything with Chicago is fake. So,
oh really?
Yeah, every fight that guy had was fake.
Yeah, I actually.
And the guy, I don't care. I'll just shout the people under the bus. What the hell was his name? Tony Patel? Is that what it was? I don't know. Somebody in Australia. And he'd go out there and beat guys in 30 seconds. I know Severn let him beat him. And what was funny was there was this guy, Bobby Hoffman. And Bobby Hoffman was just a tough fucking dude. He no particular skill, but he was just tough. And I remember we're paying Bobby Hoffman to come there and do a work fight with him. And Bobby was like, I don't care. I'm going to go kick his fucking ass. And Bobby did. He went there and beat the shit out of him. So they called it the contest. And then they showed more money to come back. And this time Bobby let him beat him because they paid him way more money the next time.
That's awesome.
So, nobody knows those stories. That's kind of stuff that came when there was no commission. There's nobody to regulate this shit. So you could do whatever you wanted.
So wait, that was against Takada or someone else? Did you say?
No, that was Bobby Hoff versus this guy Tony Bonello.
Oh yeah.
That was the name.
Yeah.
But I know Takada's fights were fake, and a lot of those Pride fights were fake. You don't know what was real and what wasn't.
It's funny that you say that because one of my friends, I've talked to quite a bit anyways, is Ensign Inoue, and he had a big thing, right, with Takada, and I always kind of thought, I was like, this seems a little bit exaggerated or something, like something just feels a little bit off about it, the anger he has towards Takada. And the call dropped. I gotta reconnect here. This is Travis Fulton, Ironman, the fighter with the most fights in MMA history.
What?
Hey, looked like that just dropped there.
Yeah, I dropped the call.
Oh, yeah. But what I was saying was, I always thought that was there was something didn't seem right about the Ensign Inoue Takada rivalry thing. And the next guy I was actually going to ask you about, I know his name because he beat Ensign Inoue, was Tom Sawyer. You fought him too, right?
Yeah, Tom had Tourette's, and which was odd. And I fought Tom. I was a little guy too. It was in '98. I was probably only 190 pounds, and Tom was like 250. All I remember about that was before the fight, I was joking around, and Monty Cox comes up to me. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "This guy's a fucking animal." He's like, "You're just serious." I'm like, "Whatever." I went out there and beat him in 2 minutes, and he took me down. He was strong, but I reversed him and punched him pretty hard. He quit. And I ended up, we both went and fought in Russia together. And the way his Tourette's works, Tourette's works is that, you say things that you won't. It's not like the Deuce Bigelow thing. It's usually just twitches and stuff. And like I sat in his hotel room, we sat there and talked for 3 or 4 hours. He kept saying, he told me stories, but then he kept saying, "I love you, honey." And then we were next to Alistair Overeem and Valentine Overeem, but at that time Valentine was the bigger name guy. And they're black, and he kept saying "fucking nigger," and they didn't even look at him. And he kept saying it over and over, and they didn't look at him. Like, holy shit! And he was like, "Yeah, man." He's like, "Dude," he's like, "That's why I was tough." He's like, "Man," he's like, "I got my ass kicked all the time as a kid because of this shit." And he says when he gets on a plane, he just announces to everybody that he has Tourette's because he knows everybody's going to look at him and he's going to say fucked up shit. So, it's funny. It's a funny disease or illness, like nervous. That's not a disease or an illness, but it's funny, but it's just like dark comedy, like, wow, that's wrong. I mean, there's something like this even exists.
What I don't understand is why would it make you speak specific words though? That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's, mostly like from what I understand with people Tourette's is just like twitches and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's all he'd say. But they were sitting there after a fight one time, and there's a guy get a douchebag at a bar, and he's like, "You're a fucking asshole." And the guy like looked at him and said, "Oh, sorry, man." He's like, "I got Tourette's." But he just thought he was an asshole. Fucking with him. But yeah, it don't work. It doesn't work like the douchebag little thing.
So he
Anybody knows what I'm talking about.
He has Tourette's, huh?
Yeah, it really does.
Wow. And that got him in a lot of fights.
And I mean, yeah, he said he used to get into fights all the time as a kid. People want to beat him up because of it. Which, I mean, kids are dicks, but that surprised me.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So where did you fight Heath Herring at?
Utah.
Oh, in Utah. Okay. How'd that fight go? Like, what? That guy's a beast too, man. I mean, that guy's like 6'4", huge
he's
dude.
Big, and he almost beat me in like 6 seconds. I look at the video because I threw him, and he fought me in a Kimura, and I beat a lot of guys with that after I fought him. He became one of the pride figure name guys, and I had to let him reverse him. We got caught up in the ropes. And so they had to restart the fight. And after that, I mean, he just couldn't take me down. And he couldn't outbox me. So I just kept like throwing around and kicking him and punching him. Won a decision.
Wow, man, that's amazing. I've always wanted to ask him because he's the only guy that fought that I know of that fought Fedor and Brock Lesnar. And I've always wanted to ask him like who he thinks would have won.
Well, some of those guys are odd, like when they decide. Like I mean, I have no idea why Heath Herring quit fighting. I have no idea why Forrest Griffin quit when he did. I mean, I'm sure that the stories are out there, but Heath was somebody that just kind of quit. I mean, he's younger than I am, and he hasn't fought. I don't even know how long, 10, 11, 12 years.
I think he fought Lesnar, and he just, I don't know, maybe he thought he was going to win that fight, and maybe he got beat pretty bad, I think, by Lesnar, right?
I think he won a decision, maybe. I mean, that was one of those funny ones, too. I was supposed to, I mean, that was another thing I put in my book was I had a chapter, just basically the fights that never happened. Because, I mean, like that first WEC when I fought Dan Severn, I was supposed to fight Chuck Liddell.
Oh, wow.
And Chuck was, he was under contract with Pride, and they wouldn't let him go, let him fight another organization. And I found out about that like 2 weeks before the event. And then I was supposed to fight, like I had a fight with Butterbean. It was going to be Butterbean's last boxing match. And I think I had to beat him. I mean, because he weighed like 420 pounds, but he was way overweight. And what ended up happening was they, I mean, I got to the venue and the ring wasn't even up yet, which I've never seen that before. They just had this frame up. And they put like this 1/4-inch plywood that was like bowing, and Butterbean was like making a big deal about it. They had some little guy get up there and it was like bowing under him, and the commission's like, "You guys got like an hour to fix this, so we're calling the event." That guy didn't even try. That got called, we didn't get the box, but we all still got paid. And Butterbean even said after he's telling me, he's like, we only got paid because of me. He's like, these guys were shady. He's like, let me the commission get our money beforehand. And I mean, there's a lot of fights, but one of the other ones was I was asked on like week and a half, maybe 2 weeks notice, might even less than that, to fight, I don't know, it's a Brazilian guy on that event where Lesnar and Heath Herring fought. And they wanted me to make 205, and I was like 240. I'm like, yeah, it ain't gonna fucking happen. And I go to the UFC, and I just done the Ultimate Fighter, and this was like a few months after that. So they end up having John Jones come and do it. John Jones was my backup, and that was his first UFC fight.
Really?
Yes. I mean, people don't know that John Jones' debut was to be my backup. I mean, it was the first UFC I ever fought, and I was a third string. It was Tank Abbott and then Gary Goodrich versus P. Williams, and they both got hurt, and I got the call on like a couple weeks' notice. So, I mean, I was supposed to fight Evander Holyfield once.
Evander Holyfield?
Yeah, it's overseas, Germany, I think, and they ended up like taking a guy. Like, I mean, it was already a done deal, and then they picked a guy with a little bit better record than mine. And it could probably go down the line of about 1 million MMA fights. I remember when Tim Sylvia first moved to Iowa, Monty Cox wanted me to fight him and beat him up. He couldn't take him. He said he's there.
Because wait, he wanted you to beat him up? Why?
Because it was when Tim first came to Iowa, and I just thought he was arrogant.
Really?
There was always that kind of shit going on.
What happened with that fight? It just didn't happen?
It just didn't happen. I mean, there were offers on the table and stuff like that, but I mean, lots of fights fall through.
Yeah, I was surprised actually because I read Matt Hughes' book, and he kind of said that no one really liked Tim Sylvia. He was kind of like a jerk.
Well, Tim was always nice to me, but then and still is when I say he's cool. But then like it's like there was this girl fighter who had a crush on me or something, and she was like flirting around me, and Tim was like talking shit about me to her. And then there was a guy that I trained with, and like he was training at Militich, and said Tim was like talking about how bad I suck, and like what a dick.
Because he liked her or something?
I don't know. You know how guys are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not cool. Oh.
But yeah, I mean, you get those. I mean, there's side stories to a lot. I mean, even where the fights where I got where they kind of screwed me over. I had the same thing in England. I fought Ian Freeman, and I mean, he was biting and eye gouging, and every time I take him down, which was a lot, they stand up right away, and then he reversed me once, and they just let him sit on the ground for like 5 minutes, and then they just kept cheating, and we were supposed to like be the end of the round, and I'm like, fuck this shit, that's done. Like, you guys gonna fuck me over like that?
Wow.
Yeah, so then they put on the internet that I quit to his punches. He was beating up so bad. And I had another fight where a guy's hometown, I think it's a tougher fighter. He beat Mark Hughes. And I choked my conscience in a fight. It was his hometown, and the crowd all went nuts. And, because, he was protesting it. He didn't remember he got choked unconscious. And the promoter came into the ring, and he's like, I'll give you $200 more, keep going. I was like, all right. Yeah, we ended up going the time limit. It was towards the other round anyway, just to call it a draw. So I had $200 to fight for another few minutes.
Oh my gosh, like the circus, man.
Oh, it always is.
Another name I'm interested in, because this guy's he's a pretty big, kind of Travis Wyeth looking dude. And I know him because he was GSP's coach, is Christophe Badu.
No, I fought him. I mean, those are I trained a little bit in those days, not as much. I was starting to get lazy, and I was one of the IFC's top guys, and he was like he was a dick. I kept reading, he spoke French. I didn't know what the fuck he was saying, but they were telling me how he was like saying how he's going to kill me, innocent insult, that he's got to fight me to get a title shot and all that stuff. And he just was arrogant as fuck, just walking around, and I just being the dickhead that I am, like, I'm gonna beat this guy's ass. And like in those days, that was weird. Like I hated wearing a neck cuff. I don't know why. I couldn't stand wearing one. And so I'd try and get away with it whenever I could, and they didn't check, and I shot a double leg, and he kicked me right in the balls. And I remember I took him down. I remember, it was like 30 seconds of the fight, and I'm like, I don't even want to be here anymore. I can't fight. And then I got my win back, and ended up knocking him out like 9 minutes in. And I don't know, there's no real backstory except for it's funny. They're dick.
Yeah, that's That's interesting. The cup thing, that's crazy. That there's one fighter I know that's like that. It's do you know Tony Lopez?
I know, but I mean, I remember. I think he's older than I am. But he was one of those guys that like never really made a name. But I've looked at his record. I was like, dude, this guy's pretty fucking tough.
Yeah, and he's he never wears a cup. He doesn't like it.
I used to hate it.
Yeah.
And I mean, but now I don't even like wrestle without a cup on. But for years, I couldn't stand wearing one. If I get away with it, I did.
Yeah, I'll never wrestle or grapple or spar without one ever. I just I can't. I don't
Well,
understand.
the worst best shot I ever took was in softball, and I don't know how the hell I got hit in the balls. I got hit in the balls running to first base. I don't know, my shortstop threw it, hit me in the nuts somehow. He hit me in the left nut. There was no leg, nothing but nut. And I was wearing compression shorts and everything, and I had a fight that weekend in North Dakota, and remember at first I just felt like kind of getting racked. I was like, oh man, that really got me in the balls. But I take a second, then it just started getting worse, and I was like, oh, this is horrible, what's going on? And I had to spend the rest of the night like in the bathroom because I got puked. And like even touch my ball, like to poke it with my finger, like was like getting in the balls again. And I had to go to this fight, and I remember I was warming up for the fight, and I was wearing a cup on, and just bouncing up and down was like getting hit the balls over and over. And I'm like, this is horrible. What the fuck's gonna happen? But then once the fight started, it was fine. And I actually won a split decision. I went all 15 minutes, but once the fight started, adrenaline kicked in, and my testicle injury did not hinder my performance.
Oh man, that's rough. I've heard of I heard that there's a statistic out there that usually when you get hit with a illegal blow or something, it's like the percentage of winning goes like way down. Like,
well, it takes the fight out of you. Like when I mean, that guy, the dude that hit me in the balls, just he tried to kick as I was shooting in on him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it took the fight. I had a grappling match too back in those days when I didn't wear a cup, and the guy was horrible. That grapple, and he was cocky too. And I took him down, and he put his knee up, and I landed right on his knee. And I remember just thinking, like, I don't even want to do this anymore. I like thought about quitting. I'm like, I'm not quitting this fucking dude. He don't care how he beats me to brag until he died about beating me. So I toughed it out.
What about this is a guy that I always thought would be really hard for anybody. Wesley Carrera, like what happened in that fight? You beat him, right? Which that guy
I
is
fought him in Guam.
in Guam.
And just, I mean, I don't know, he was big. He took me down, but then I got in the half guard, and then I rolled him, and then just once I rolled him, he was like a turtle. Couldn't get away, and then I just caught him in that very non-slick armbar. Punch just even coming a mile away. But I armbarred him, and he tapped it, and that was that. Wasn't much to it. I mean, before he fought Kate Abbott in the UFC, actually before he fought Tim Sylvia, I think his next fight was Tim Sylvia in the UFC.
Oh,
But
really?
I guess he took the punch. He took the punches from me on the ground, but then he fed me an arm, and that's when I armbarred him.
So you had him. He was on his hands and knees, kind of, and you just
he was on his back. I reversed him.
Oh, on his back.
And I ended up on top, and he was on his back.
So he couldn't deal with your grappling then.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe he didn't know what he was doing. I haven't thought anybody could see that armbar coming. I'd walk it right up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a guy who used to collect video of the fight. That was one of those fights I didn't think existed. He got it for me from somebody.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I actually have the video of it. It's great quality, like old VHS, all jumpy and shit.
Do you have a lot of your fights on video?
I used to have a bunch of them, but then I stopped giving a fuck, and now I'd probably never be able to get them again. There's a few that I have the only copies that existed, and I mean, it is whatever, I guess. I could say it happened.
Did you ever put them on YouTube or anything like that, or no?
There's a bunch on YouTube.
Yeah.
I ended up the smaller event.
How about Evan Tanner? 'Cause Evan Tanner was that's another world champion you fought, right?
that was another fight under the Pancrase rules, and it was in Evan's show. And I think he's just a good wrestler. He couldn't punch. It was a sweat match. He caught me in like a triangle choke, like a reverse triangle choke. It was weird. I don't know. He got me down. I don't even remember how it went. He got me down, and that was pretty much where the fight was. I think it would last, 4 or 5 minutes, maybe.
Okay, and he caught you in a reverse triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he won a bunch of like heavyweight tournaments or something before he ended up going down in weight. I think he was the middleweight champion in the UFC.
I'm not even sure. I mean, I know he won the title. I thought maybe he even won it a couple times, but
yeah, I think he did.
I can't remember who was it that knocked him out. Was it Tito that knocked him out with the slam?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was Tito. You're right. I forgot about that. That seems like that would have been a good fight. You and Tito.
I mean, maybe in my prime.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the thing, is catching a guy in their prime. But yeah, that fight was never on the table. I think by the time he jumped in, I was like already a heavyweight.
Oh, okay.
Well, he actually had his first fights. I mean, he'd only fought the UFC. He had one fight at some small show in California, but everything else was in the UFC.
What about Rich Franklin?
That was another one, too, is rings rules where you couldn't punch on the ground, and I had a broken hand. That's where I got stupid. I fought an entire year with a busted hand.
Oh, my God.
I broke my hand before UFC 23 and just some small show, and had to like pull off the show. And I got offered like not even a month later like a high paying fight in Japan, and I got another high paying fight in Russia, and I did them like with one hand, and then I just kept fighting that year and did all one handed. So definitely at a disadvantage. I couldn't punch anybody, and a lot of times couldn't even lock my hand.
That's
so
crazy.
One hand.
What's that?
So I fought Rich Franklin with one hand.
Oh, my God.
I think the entire year of 2000, everybody I fought was with one hand. Every fight after March of 2000.
Was that a heavyweight or was that a 205?
I think that was a heavyweight fight. I think Rich weighed like 220 or 225.
Okay. Cal Worsham.
Oh, you saw Cal died. That's terrible. I don't know what he died of.
Yeah, I heard that too. He just died, huh?
Yeah, a couple days ago. Yeah, I mean, Cal beat me up. I don't know what he quit for. I mean, I don't know, he was strong. I flew in that day, and I'm not going to say that it was in California, and I flew in the day of the fight. I don't know if that would be a factor in my performance, but I couldn't do anything to him. He was just strong and just kept punching me, and then I put him in armbar right at the end of the first round, and he quit after in between rounds that I hurt his arm.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I mean, he beat me up the whole round.
Did you rack his arm pretty good in that armbar, though?
I think he was tired.
Yeah, he just got...
I've seen that happen a few times.
Where guys just go too hard and they can't...
Yeah, get your gas out and just something's hurt. That's how you win.
Yeah, I remember him being a really intense guy because I remember his fight with that polar bear guy where he just elbowed. Yeah, he was just... I mean, he was going crazy elbowing him in the head and stuff. He seemed like a really tough dude, Cal Worsham.
He was strong. He's a really strong guy. But I mean, he's one of those guys there are a lot of guys like that would take big breaks during their fighting careers, and sometimes they came back and they were better after the break, and sometimes they were worse.
Yeah. So Dan Severn was the strongest guy you ever fought, though?
I'd say so. That was all around just strong, but that was only the first fight. I mean, I don't remember being that strong the second time I fought him, but second or third. But it was also I weighed 190 pounds the first time I fought him, so that's probably why.
And then maybe because you kind of have a similar style to him too, right? Like wrestling, so it's kind of a
Well, I mean, I knew my only chance with him was to keep it standing. And Vanna's a good wrestler.
Yeah. Let me see here. Tony Day. I think I wrote that name down because you fought him a number of times, right? There's
There's
who's
a bunch
that
of
guy?
guys I fought like that. Tony Day, Roy Prezak, Brian Robinson, Mike Toefoot. The reason why is these small events in Iowa, and I need a last minute opponent, and these guys can make a quick $200, and that's why they get thrown in there with me. I like fighting Tony because he would be a bitch. I mean, there was other guys like I fought Brian Robinson a bunch of times, and Mike Toefoot too. I mean, they weren't going in there to fight; they were going in there to get paid. And so as soon as they did anything that like remotely scared them, they fell down and napped. But Tony, he wasn't tough, but he'd at least try.
Yeah, he had a fighting spirit.
He had a what?
He had a fighting spirit in him.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's lots of guys that the spirit is willing, their body just sucks at it.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. We talked about Ben Rothwell. What about the Forrest Griffin fight? What happened there?
Well, that was one of those fun. Forrest dropped me with a punch right away. And I mean, as I was saying, I didn't get dropped too many times, but and that was a time when once the fight went, there were no stand-ups in most events, and he took my back and just like butt raped me for the entire round. He opened up 2 cuts on the top of my head, and when the round ended, the doctor stopped them because they both needed stitches. I didn't even know I was cut open.
Oh, really?
So I mean, it could have gone any other number of ways, but I mean, that's how it went.
How about Joe Riggs? Joe Riggs is, I mean, he beat Nick Diaz, I think.
Well, I mean, that was the big too. That was another one of those fights I flew in the day of, and he shot in on me. I put him in a guillotine choke, and he tapped. So I let him go, and the referee's like, I didn't see a tap. And Joe just kind of looked at me, and I jumped up, put him in a guillotine choke again, and he tapped again, and that was it. I think I beat him in like 40 seconds or something.
Oh, so another guy you beat twice.
Yeah. Apparently.
What about Jeff Monson?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was a strong guy, but I mean, I knew he was going to try and take me to the ground. I was in decent shape. But I mean, he's strong. Monson's another one of those guys that didn't get the credit for how good they were. And I mean, Monson traveled around like all over like Russia, just beat all kinds of tough ass Russian dudes. And I mean, he just caught me in had an arm choke or something, north-south choke. I can't remember which choke he caught me in. Might have been an arm bar. I don't remember. But I mean, once I was trying to write out the round because he was going for, I think he got me down finally like 2 minutes in, and he was going for a submission hold the entire time, and I think there was only like 15, 20 seconds left. But he finally got it in.
Yeah, Jeff, I really like Jeff. He's a really interesting guy. I talked with him.
Travis Pugh beat too that Pugh doesn't get like credit for.
Oh, he beat Monson before?
Yeah, he beat Monson. You beat Rico Rodriguez. He beat a lot of tough dudes that nobody really gives him credit for doing.
Is he still fighting?
He wants to. He messages me all the time. It's like, Trav, no, man. I remember I think it was John McCarthy I was talking to, and he was like, yeah, he's like, that guy's going to get killed one of these times. So I think it was right after, where the M.M.A got killed in the boxing match.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, he's getting knocked out too much. And I was telling View about that, and he's like, fuck that. He's like, it's more fun. I'll fucking go there. I was like, do you pass CAT scans? It's like, well, last time some irregular stuff came up.
Oh
I
my
think Terrence
god.
is nice. He's not an overly intelligent fella, but that's what a lot of people don't understand. They think fighters are dickheads. It's like, no, most fighters are just not very smart guys. So they don't have much of a personality. So they might be sitting there meat mugging you, but really they're just like thinking about cheeseburgers or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, especially too when you're a heavyweight fighter, there's just guys that hit really hard, and it can't be good for you to get repeatedly hit with those punches, especially if you get knocked out.
Well, that's what I even said about Chuck. I was, I'm like, he's gonna get knocked out. He did. It's just your chin. I mean, it'll happen to me too. That's why I'm like, yeah, I don't want to really do MMA anymore because I get dropped, and it's not something you can. The only thing you can do to defend against it is to work on your defense and not get hit. But you're gonna get hit at some point.
So are you done fighting, or?
If I get offered some good ones overseas, I'll do them. Because I got offered a few last year. Other than that, yeah. I mean, I also box. I like boxing. I would try and get 100 boxing matches under my belt. But as far as MMA, I could care less to ever fight MMA again. Just because I don't want to get beat by guys that I had to beat in my prime. I mean, even the guys that I lost to in 2017, I think I had beaten every one of those guys in my prime pretty easily.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So that's part of that mentality.
Well, I mean, I don't need the paydays, and at my level, I mean, it's not like I'm getting $1 million a fight, so it's not really worth my time to go out there and lose to a guy that I would have beat a long time ago. Where it's very clear I'm just doing it to get paid.
Were you able to make a living off of fighting, or were you working all the time, or like?
Well, yeah, I mean, I made enough to live comfortably for a while, but I was always in the right place at the wrong time, so I never made the millions of dollars. Coming in the IFL at the end of the organization, and UFC too early, and increase too late, rings too late. Before or after they started paying really well, and so I never made like some of these big paydays, but I know guys who make big paydays that, they're, I don't know what the fuck they spent their money on, but they don't look like they made a big payday.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories that a lot of fighters, they'll like win their money. I actually heard this about Evan Tanner because I'm pretty close to his circle, Chael Sonnen and Couture and all those guys. And I heard that Evan Tanner would win he'd win and he'd go straight to the gambling tables, at the casino or something, like right away.
That's what Antoine Eccles would do. He was a tough boxer in the 90s. Lose it all on the table. Like, jeez, man, come on.
I can't imagine.
Well, I mean, how some guys are, I guess. I mean, that's the thing too. Is I know a couple guys that were tougher guys out of my hometown area, and they decide they're going to be full-time fighters. And I mean, they were good enough to go somewhere, and they moved. I think one moved to Florida, and another moved to Wisconsin, thinking they were going to like make it somewhere good. I think the guy that moved to Florida, I think he didn't have fight big sports. The guy went to Wisconsin, fought the UFC 3 times, but they thought it was like they were going to make all kinds of money, and they didn't. Like, I was like, man, making that money short-lived. You can't all be GSP or Conor McGregor or something like that. Like 1% of 1% actually makes enough to retire on.
Yeah, I think that's part of the sport that's really interesting is that you see someone like a Conor McGregor and it makes you feel like it's possible, but it's kind of not really because that's just one person who just happened to have all these.
Well, Connor's too is he's a tougher guy and just a gimmick. You know how to sell it. Like that's what I always said. Like, I mean, I thought Ronda should have retired before she fought Holly. I was like, this chick is not good, and they're telling her she's awesome, and it's like all she has is a 1-2. and they got her like thinking she could beat every dude in the UFC. And I'm like, she's gonna get smoked, and she finally did. And like, she should have hung it up on that undefeated, record instead of going out. She should even went out there and did that last one and got murdered.
Yeah, she really seemed like she bought into the hype that people were saying all this stuff. It kind of seemed like she believed it.
Well, that's the whole thing. Is like when I heard them talking about how she beat dudes, like, who watched this chick fighting? Like, she has a 1-2, and she's a grappler. She tries to box with her 1-2. It's like she's the field out there, and then it's like she tries to box somebody like Holly Holm, who is a legit boxer and kickboxer. She gets smoked, and she did.
So was Monty Cox? Did he get you your fights all the way through, or did you do a lot of that on your own? Or
Monty got me some, but no, I always did on my own. I got the UFC from, I don't even know who did it. Monty Cox called me and said he got me in it, but I had a manager at the time who had got me in Pancrase called Lee, and she said she got me to fight. I was like, well, whatever. But what sucked was there was UFC in Cedar Rapids. I think it was UFC 26, and Ian Freeman was fighting and needed an opponent. And I was like, fuck, I want to fight that fucking dude, because this was like right after our fight in Eastland where they fucked me over. I'm like, fuck me over in his hometown. I'm like, come to mine, because Cedar Rapids is like 45 minutes away from me. And I told Monty, and Monty's like, oh, well, no, we'll put Nate in. I'm like, he'll beat Nate Schroeder. And he's like, well, I'll tell you what. He's like, you're actually signed with Phyllis Lee. He's like, I wouldn't make money if I got you in there. It's like, I take a percentage. He's like, well, I already got Nate to fight. I'm like, dick move, Monty. But it is what it is.
yeah, that's such a huge element of it that people don't realize, right?
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of shit going on. Man, I heard a story. I don't know how true it is, but there was the guy, Burt Rogers, right after he knocked out Andre Arlovsky, they got him a fight with Fedor. And Rogers' trainer wanted so badly to be his manager, and he's kind of a dumb shit. And so he negotiated his fight with Fedor and got him I can't remember what supposedly it was, like 20 or 30 grand. And they signed the deal and it was done. And Brett, I guess, called his management and told him that. He's like, you signed a contract, why? And he's like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, oh, well, don't worry, you'll still get your percentage. He's like, I got a contract here right now for 250 grand for that fight. He took it for like 20 or 30. The trainer/manager let that seem like a big deal. But that could be bullshit, because I think his manager was bullshit too. So
Where'd you hear
I
that?
can believe it, though.
Yeah.
No, we hear shit all the time. I don't even know. Somebody on the inside told it to me.
Yeah, that
I mean, they all know. I know who wins, who's in the finals of the Ultimate Fighter. I used to know who made the finals every single year before it ever happened. I mean, you know the right guy. You got to sign that contract for 5 minutes. You're not going to tell anybody anything, but guys tell guys, and they tell somebody else. You keep a secret around here.
Yeah, of course, right? I mean,
yeah. So, I don't like to tell anybody I wasn't even watching fights, but I mean, I did always know who was going to do the finals every year.
Yeah, it's interesting too, like some of the like promotional stuff, or like, because we were talking about like records or how things went down. There was a guy that was on the Ultimate Fighter, Tyler Diamond. I don't know if you're familiar with that guy. He's kind of a lighter weight guy, a newer guy. But it was like the season of the Ultimate Fighter was all about like being undefeated. It was like undefeated, all these undefeated guys. And Tyler Diamond, one of my buddies had fought him and beat him before, And I was like, dude, I know a guy that beat him, I was there. And but he went to like
Well, they suppressed those fights. Same thing. I know a couple guys who got the UFC on Big Fight, where back before commissions, they if you knew the people who did the database, if you're a promoter, the databases would, if they trusted a promoter, they'd put their results in their database. And I knew promoters who would submit fights that never happened.
Yeah.
So the guys won fights that never even happened.
I actually, when I was at one of Chael's fights, and I was at the bar, and Greg Savage was there from Sherdog, or he used to be with Sherdog, anyways. And he was telling me that the every time they had an Ultimate Fighting the show, that they would call, the UFC would call Sherdog and like tell them all their records and everything to put in the database.
Well, even Sherdog, when one time my record was on their database wasn't even very good because they had all my losses because I only lost on big shows, but they, I don't even remember what my record was. I think at one time I was like at 25 losses and I had like 100 wins, but they had me with like 25 losses and like 50 wins because I'd won on smaller events and they wouldn't even, publish the ones from these smaller events. And then mixed martial arts, I think they were called like Full Contact Fighter at that time, started their own database, and I became friends with the guy who did the record keeping, and he asked me if he's like, I know you've had a lot more fights, and I gave him a lot of mine, and then Sherdog started having an interest since this other database was publishing my record, so they started catching up. So.
Oh, that's interesting.
They had no competition, so.
Yeah. Well, which one do you think is the best one out there? MixedMartialArts.com?
I think so, just because they used to, I don't even know now. I know back in the day they were because they were the more accurate one. But I think, don't they use Sherdog now? I don't even know which one the commissions even use.
I don't know. I know there's Tapology, there's MixedMartialArts.com, and Sherdog are kind of the three top ones. But the Greg's when I saw Greg Savage, I guess they sold Sherdog. Jeff Sherwood did, and Savage was telling me that he felt like they're not even going to be around much longer. That's what he said, anyways. He might have had a bad, experience with them, and.
I don't even know. That's the whole thing is I never watch fights. So I don't follow it anymore. I'm just, it's a big fan. I'm not even a fan. I don't have like any resentment or anything towards the sport. I just got bored with it. And I'll have people come up to me and be like, hey, what do you think of somebody who's got a bigger name fighting this other guy's got a bigger name? I don't know the fuck those guys are. So I don't know what to think of that.
Yeah.
I just assume I'm a fan of it, and it's like, I'm not. It's boring. I did it for 20-some years. It's not as fun as it used to be.
Well, it's not the same, too. There was just something very manly about it, right?
Well, that was what was awesome about my last fight with Ivy was that was where I met Ivy, fighting in Indiana on a smaller event, he's from Tennessee, I'm from Iowa, and here we are meeting in the neutral ground, we fight. It was like, that was actually an awesome way to go out, because that used to be how it always was back in the 90s. I would fought hook and shoot, which was a big event at that time, a big Midwestern event. In Indiana, I fought there all the time. That's where I met him, speaking of. And just the traveling around. Even the IFC was a big event. They needed some fighters, and we just pack a bunch of guys in a van and we head there. They'd match us up once we got there.
Since you're still boxing, but you might be done with your MMA. Do you feel that your dream of being in the Kumite and everything, was that all fulfilled for you? Like, how do you inside?
After watching the UFC, my dream just became to fight in the UFC, and I did that. So I was like, I never really had any goals after that, and just was like kind of a fan of it, and then just got bored with that too. And but the Kumite doesn't exist. So.
Yeah.
You got to hear. It's cool. Frank Dukes shared one of my stories on his page, so that was cool because that's who he's the one that wrote that movie. But Zane Frazier, who fought a couple of the early UFCs, says that Frank Dukes is bullshit. Kumite never asked him, so it's like, well, whatever. either way.
Yeah. But so with your goals, would you say your goals were more like, because externally you've done so much, like you have like the most fights of anybody, your accomplishments, your tail. Was it more external accomplishments, or was it more like an internal thing for you fighting? And
I just love the sport. I didn't care about what I did or who thought anything of it. Even now, it's funny. I fought overseas. I fought in Germany, Ukraine, and Slovakia last year, and I was like a celebrity. My opponents who were local, like nobody. Like after the press conference, that people lined up like wanted to take pictures with me. And I'm like, these people like fucking 15 years in the past. Like somebody was like, I was in Ukraine. The guy thought I was UFC champion. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? He was like a fighter. He was a cornerman. Like, I've been in the UFC for like 20 years, dude. What are you talking about? So, I mean, legitimately thought I was. But, that's just it. Is like, I'll be one of those guys who I'll be remembered forever just because I've had a ton of fights. But I'm not gonna get recognition until after I'm gone. Then there will be people, because this sport will get more famous, and people ask who's had the most fights, and then I'll come up and they're like, oh yeah, that cocksucker did.
Did you set out to do that at a certain point? Was there like a certain point where you're like, I want this record?
I never gave a shit about it. I didn't even know if I wasn't going for anything. Because guys used to make up records. I remember when the first time I fought Brad Colbert, there was a guy telling me his record was 256-5, and I believed him. Man, where'd you get all those fights at? Oh, dude, I fought all over the place. Fight anybody time. I was like, whatever. He was 0-2. I don't know where his other 259 or whatever fights. I'm not doing the math. I go, what's 59, right? Where those come from? But, yeah. I mean, there's guys that make shit up all the time. I mean, Gary Myers, he fought extreme fighting, and I mean, he claimed to have a record of like 50-5. It's like, where'd you fight all those fights at? But there were fights that counted. Like, there were some bigger name guys in the 90s. Somebody held an event in an abandoned house in the basement in the winter. And It's on guys' records because it was like a real event in some abandoned house in Wisconsin in the winter. And I think they called the event the Cold House Fight or some shit like that. Like back in like 1997.
Well, when did you pick up the nickname? Like, at what point were you, get the
name? It was in 98 with I had seen a guy, I think Eddie Goldman. He was like a big sports writer back in those days, and he started calling me Ironman because of all the fights. Like Lou Gehrig. And because even in 98, I already had like 40 or 50 or 60 fights, so he called me the Iron Man of M.M.A. or what's it called, M.M.A. or Iron Man. I think it's called shoot fighting back then. Iron Man is shoot fighting. I don't even remember when they started calling it MMA like 15 years ago or something.
Yeah, Eddie Goldman. I used to listen. He has a podcast, right? I used to listen to Eddie Goldman, and he always seemed.
Still alive?
I don't know if he's still alive. I know that
he was old then. He was old 20 years ago.
He was always really pissed off about something, though.
Well, that's just his voice. He sounded mad.
Oh, okay.
That's just how he sounded. He might have been mad. I don't know. But, I mean, it was him and Joe Gold. He was they both were with Fulton. Joe Gold was the one who had started that publication, and that was like a big, a newspaper, but this was time before the internet was big, and like so people would buy Full Contact Fighter magazine and have subscriptions to it. There was also another one called Fighting Sports Newsletter. Remember, I was all excited when I got ranked mine, like back in '98 or something. Like they did their world ranking that for some reason were legit, and I was in the top 25. I was all excited about it.
Yeah, I think on what was it, Wikipedia or something, you were the number one ranked heavyweight, I think, for like the longest period of time. You're number 2 right now. So there is one guy that's like ranked above you on I think it was on Tapology I saw it.
Number one in what?
I'm not sure what it is. I mean, it might be the like your region. The
Well, I mean, out of Iowa, Sylvia was here, but he wasn't like from here, so he wasn't like considered from this area. So, I mean, yeah, there were nobody here for years that was like tough. Not like tough enough to beat. There might have been tougher guys, but then they never did anything. They fought a couple of local fights, and that was it.
Yeah, they're not. They don't have your resume. I think it's based probably off your record and stuff, right? Which
I don't even know where they make that shit up.
Who knows, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's some guy sitting in his basement decides somebody suffered another day and throws it on the internet.
Yeah, I've always thought it I'm very interested in different fighters, like different people I've talked to. I thought it was one of the most interesting fighters to me is Enson Inoue, because he talks about what it meant to him, what he was doing it for and how he did achieve that, and he wasn't, he didn't have a ton of fights and he didn't wasn't like super successful. As another guy that I talked to was Mark Schultz. He only had one.
Marshall.
What's that?
I guess Mark was all excited because I fought Church Kosaka. No, it's my fight when I beat Heath Herring. Mark Schultz was like my cornerman. I was like, man, that guy's a great wrestler. I was like, oh man, a great wrestler. I'll be a great wrestler. I'll take that.
Wow, he's really good. But one thing interesting about Mark Schultz is he's so accomplished, but he doesn't seem like he's not very happy about it. He's kind of I don't know. He doesn't seem like he has peace. And I wonder,
I think they should have done more. And I mean, I should have done more. I'd have actually trained, but I can't do it over. So I could have done way more than I did, but I'm lazy. I felt like going to the gym. I hated training, and then I got to the point where I liked training and didn't like fighting.
Huh. Well, because I mean, it's interesting. You have more fights than anyone ever, and you say that you're lazy and you didn't do enough. What would you do differently? What does that mean when you say that? Because to me, you've done unbelievable. It's unbelievable what you've done.
Well, I mean, I would just go back if I started my career over. I mean, I would have trained a little bit more and got more versed before I actually started fighting, and then just would have picked better fights. Yeah, I mean, that's just it. It's like a lot of these guys, like Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz, the two examples. They made really good money because I mean they were the two guys. They were when the UFC got bought by I forget who bought it, but two brothers bought it. They were the first two faces of it. So they got they started making the big money because they were in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And there were lots of guys who just that were tough that just kind of fizzled away or just weren't there when they should have been and didn't make a bunch of money. I mean, even Pat Miletich, I mean, he's UFC champ and stuff, but he never made a killing doing it, I guess. But then I think Sylvia got $800,000 to get beat by Fedor in 30 seconds.
Oh, did he?
Something else got paid really well by Affliction because Affliction did a couple of events and paid a ridiculous amount of money. And it was just the guys that were there. I think Arlovsky got $200,000. He knocked out Rothwell.
Yeah, I always thought it was cool because there's pictures of Fedor with Donald Trump, I think, from Affliction, right? Wasn't he involved in it somehow?
Well, I don't even know. I know Affliction had a shitload of money back from them. That's all I know about it.
Yeah, and then it went.
And I mean, that's the thing too is Some of these organizations only existed because they had a ton of backing. I mean, even Bellator, they had a bunch of money backing them, and that's the thing. King of the Cage too was a big one because they had something where he had a deal with a whole bunch of Indian reservations where he was. They paid him a ton of money for pop, and he had I think one event a month. But the problem was is he'd have a good main event that cost much money, but then he'd have an undercard full of a bunch of dudes you never heard of. So nobody really got into it, but they were on pay-per-view for a minute.
King of the Cage?
Yeah, back, I don't even know when, a long time ago. So, like 15, 20 years ago, they were a bigger event.
Yeah, they're almost like they turned into like a franchise or something that other promoters can actually do. King of the Cage.
Yeah, I mean, you could pay for it like a McDonald's or something.
Yeah, like McDonald's.
Which is stupid because nobody cares about it. Nobody knows who King of the Cage is anymore.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot of shows now.
Well, I mean, that's just it. It's like these. I call them the new M.M.A. fans, UFC fans, because they don't know anything past what they can watch on TV, and then they'll try and talk to you like they know all about the sport. And I'm not going to sit there and argue with somebody that doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. Like, yeah, sounds cool. I'd like to watch that stuff.
Yeah, when they're just like they're like Connor and Ronda fans.
Yeah, I mean, I get people. Where'd you fought before? I watched UFC all the time. Really? Yeah. What do you think of it? It's just funny to talk with people because they're stupid. So I don't even care.
During that time period, were you kind of looking at like Chuck Liddell and Tito and kind of like that's kind of what you wanted to be in there with those guys? Or were you already a heavyweight, or because it seems like that would be a good.
There were times I was bigger names than those guys. Right? They were winning with them too because I was bigger before them. And so it's. I don't know. I mean, it's just like I remember the first time I ever met Matt Hughes. He shook my hand like, "Oh, Mr. Bolton, someday I hope to be as good as you." And then, I saw him a year and a half later or something, and I said, "Hey, what's up, Matt?" And he gave me this cocky head nod. I'm like, "Fine, be a dick." Are you really, dude? I mean, when I fought Arlovsky, BJ Penn came up to me and was talking about, "We watched you fight flying with the fan." And it's like, see, there's a guy who's made it 100 times further than I did. He's still going to come up and be cool to me. So don't give me a cocky head nod like you were never a fan of the sport.
Yeah, no, that surprises me. But I've heard that like some people really like Matt Hughes and some people really don't like him.
I don't know. I mean, he's cool to me sometimes. But I should say sometimes. I don't see him anymore, but he was cool sometimes. He's a dick sometimes. So a lot of those guys were. I didn't Sylvia was always nice, but I always heard he was a dick. I had a buddy that was going to buy a t-shirt from his table one time at an event, and he set his beer on the table, and so he's like, "Hey, get that fucking beer off my table." He's still you're buying the whole table. The guy put the shirt down and walked away. Fuck that guy. Whatever.
So when you say that BJ Penn went 100 times further than you, what do you mean by that? Because, I mean, he fought in a, maybe, he had more success in the UFC, I guess. But what do you, how do you view it, when you say that?
Well, I mean, he was the top guy in the UFC for years. I mean, I was never anybody in the UFC. I fought in it. That's about it. He was a champ. And a lot of those guys were, when else the right way? I mean, there's guys like Jeff Fuller was a great fighter, but he was one of the ones that he had the same problem that I think Pierce got. He got caught on the chin, and then his chin got weaker and weaker and weaker, and he just kept fighting. Yeah. Sylvia had the same issue. Sylvia started losing the guys that he would have killed. But you got to realize when your chin don't got it no more.
Yeah. So do you think the UFC because I've always, I don't know, I don't really like the whole UFC is the best. I mean, I know there's a lot of the best fighters, but I mean, kind of you could fight them outside. You fought a lot of those guys, but maybe not in the UFC, but it's still the same guys. Do you think the UFC is just way better than everything else, or
Well,
how do
I
you?
mean, the problem is though, if they don't get any competition because they would compete with them, they buy them out. If they could buy up Bellator right now, they would. But Bellator is still just not getting the same. I mean, it's extremely comparable to WWF. I mean,
Yeah.
WCW came close to like being something, but nobody could compare with them. They like cornered the market, and that's what the UFC is always going to do. Nobody's ever going to compare with them.
Aren't they getting sued though for that?
Who's that?
Yeah,
UFC?
yeah.
By who?
I thought that they were getting sued for a monopoly. It was like I know there's a lawsuit with a bunch of fighters that they because I guess that's illegal to have a monopoly, and I thought it was really
Well,
interesting.
I mean, they definitely got a monopoly. I mean, they bought up Pride, WEC, Strikeforce, and anybody can compete with them.
Yeah. I remember because I really liked Pride, but I mean, you're saying that a lot of those fights were fixed.
Well, I would say a lot. I mean, there were definitely big fights. I mean, I don't even know a percentage, maybe 5%, but there were a lot of fake ones. If it was a Japanese wrestler, he was not doing a real fight.
Yeah. Were you a Pride fan?
No, I mean, I didn't care. The thing with Japan is they're so full of honor, all that over there. If you fought for one organization, you weren't allowed to fight for another. And I fought for Pancrase, and then I fought for rings, and so I never had to fight for Pride because I was always in one or the other. Then there was always Shudo too, and I don't even know if that was even around anymore.
Yeah, I think they've gone and now they had Dream and something else, and now they got what is that Ryzen, but it doesn't seem the same to me.
I wouldn't even know. Japan was a cool place to fight, and I mean, the promoters over there treat you the best.
So you fought pretty much like all over the world then.
I think I fought in like 17 countries or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've had a couple fights.
Yeah. I mean, that's is that one of the best parts about it? Is just the experience that this life that you got to live?
All I really ever get to experience is an airport and hotel. They usually can't wait to get you the fuck out of there the next morning.
Oh, so you're just there.
Like you wouldn't want to be. Like I fought in Chechnya. I mean, nobody wants to be there. I mean, but I've seen some cool places. I mean, Japan was cool. Like the first time I fought Hawaii was for Super Bowl, and the promoter was T.J. Thompson, and he even paid for us all to have an extra day after the event, an extra night in the hotel, so that we could hang out in Hawaii, which was awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool.
But I mean, most promoters aren't gonna do that for you.
Yeah, I know that. Who do you think is do you think there is like a best fighter ever? Or?
Well, that's the thing is anybody that's going to fight, I mean, it's mixed martial arts, so anybody who's actually going to compete against the top guys out there is going to compete because there's so many different ways to win. I mean, you can't be the absolute best at all three aspects of the sport, which is stand-up, wrestler, and submission. I mean, somebody's going to be better at one aspect of that, and that's why styles make the fights, not boxing. Like guys can say undefeated boxing or kickboxing, but M.M.A. the only guys who are saying undefeated are the guys who avoided fighting anybody tough. I think the closest anybody did, even though he lost that Kosaka, was Fedor was probably the longest anybody was able to stay at the top, fight good competition, and not losing.
Yeah, do you think that's because his well-rounded style, or?
I mean, yeah, he just looked like he was a tough dude. He was that great stand-up, great wrestler, he's a good ground or a submission fighter.
Yeah, and it kind of seemed like he had like a gift, like his athleticism. He's kind of quick, like he maybe got off.
Well, that's what people they're always so wrong when they see a big ripped guy and automatically assume that guy's tough or in great shape or a good athlete. It's like bullshit. I had a fight one time. Because I used to just not even fucking care. It was in '98. I mean, I cared, but I just wanted to fight. I didn't get all warmed up, and I was next. So somebody's like, "Hey, you're calling you up next." I was wearing my street clothes. And I changed in my fight clothes real quick and went out there. The guy I fought was like chiseled, completely ripped. You could see every muscle in his body, and beat him in like a minute. He's like, "So he looks like he's tough. Don't be tough."
Yeah.
I mean, look at Roy Nelson. That's all you got to say.
Yeah, that guy just has a hammer.
Yeah, I think he was a great wrestler too. One of those things that, like, I mean, people don't realize these guys have phenomenal wrestling background.
Yeah. And so you just had like a really good chin all your life?
A really good what?
Chin?
I don't know. I got punched and nobody hurt me. So I'd imagine. I mean, that was one of those things, like, when I was like 17, I beat up there's a local college, University of Northern Iowa. We were at some event, like, they had a bunch of rugby players just being dick people in the crowd, and they pushed one of my buddies, and I said something to him, and I told the guy was going to hit me. And he did, and then thought he was going to drop me because he was huge, and didn't. And I beat the shit out of him, and then beat up two of his friends, and beat up their fat friend. And I was going to go after another guy, and one of my buddies was like, "We got to get out of here. It's some fun."
Yeah.
But, I mean, to beat up, actually, the guy was somewhat recently, everybody thinks it's funny. There was a big group of guys that got beat up by a bunch of guys at a party one time 25 years ago, and people whole house full of guys. And it was actually one of those cases where the guys actually admitted they got beat up by me. And so, well, you know, usually everybody claims to beat you up. I had a guy for years that I beat up, telling everybody that he beat me up, and people believed it. Like, whatever, I don't care. The street fight is shit. And, but yeah, there's a guy from just earlier this year. He was like nervous around me, and his wife was talking to me. She's like, "Well, he don't want to say anything. He doesn't remember if you remember him." And he told me his name. I'm like, "Why do I remember you?" And he's talking about how I beat him up at the house. He's like, "Well, I punched you, but then you punched me back and dropped me." And like, telling me how I beat everybody up. It's like, dude, 25 years ago, man. I thought I was so mad. But yeah, I mean, I had lots of street fights. I mean, I had some funny ones. I mean, I could tell you street fighting stories all day. I had a guy, we were golfing. I was like 21 years old, and just played through us. He plays golf, and all this bullshit. He was on foot. And he was just a douchebag wearing sunglasses, no shirt on, and he was on our fairway, and like, fuck that dude, I'm just going to drive the ball. I'm not going to wait for him. He shouldn't have played through me. The ball probably came like 20 feet from, which is kind of close on a golf course. And I drove down there, and he was standing by my ball. I'm like, thanks for marking my ball. He's like, drive within 100 yards, you get him a rest club around your head. And he walked away, and my buddy's like, "Oh, forget it, man." I'm like, "No, I'm not letting that dude get away with it." He's like, "No, let's not do nothing." I chipped my ball. I'm like, "Fuck it, I'm going to go do something." And he went over there, and I was like, "You got something to say?" He like, looked pretty, I don't remember what he said. He said he's going to get his 9 holes and then wait for me at the clubhouse and kick my ass. And I'm like, "Fuck you, let's go now." And I walked towards him, and he went to swing his club. And I knocked him out in the first punch. And he's falling over, but I still gave one good more left hook on his way down. And he's just laying there, he's unconscious. I'm like, "Fuck this dude. He ain't getting away that easy." I shit kicked him once, and he woke up afterwards and took out running. He's like, "I'm calling the cops." Right after I called out. So, I mean, there's a million of those, and just douchebags, full of them.
I mean, you seem like a pretty nice, articulate guy. And is that one of the reasons you think people might try to fight you because they don't think that you could fight like you can?
Nobody ever tries to fight me. That's what people always say is like, somebody wants to like try to take a shot at you. I'm like, no, for one, I'm not a dick to people. I'm nice. Like, and if you're an asshole, I'll be funny. You know, it's more fun to show you that I'm not scared of you and make fun of you. And if you want to try and do something, I'll beat you up. They never do. But no, I mean, nobody ever does. The guys that might try and fight is like, you know, like a BJ Penn or a Ken Fulton. I mean, a little guy like that. Doesn't think they can take out. But, Yeah, I mean, nobody ever tries to like assault or fight me. I don't recall that ever happening.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, you said that you wanted to fight Butterbean. That, I mean, to me, a guy like that would be someone that I'd go, man, that's probably not the best decision to try to fight a guy like that. And yeah, and I mean, you're like, yeah, no issue. What's that?
Just move, stick and move. It's Butterbean. He's about as mobile as a turtle.
He is, but he has some of the most brutal knockouts ever. I mean,
300-pound Butterbean kept getting knocked out, but 400-pound Butterbean was a lot less mobile. I mean, I was going to be a bully and take him out when he's out of his prime, but it didn't get to happen, so it's whatever.
Who was the hardest puncher that you ever fought or hitter?
I fought a lot of guys that just like, I mean, even Cal Warshaw, remember that dude hit me hard. I hit hard by a lot of dudes, but then there were lots of guys they said hit hard that didn't hit very hard. Dan Severn's knees on the ground, I mean, those did hurt. That's what's funny about all the things that are illegal now, and like everybody actually got brutal. Is like, I remember you could fucking soccer punt somebody in the face. I've been soccer punted in the face. Still end up in that position. Headbutts and all that stuff. We used to be able to do all that. And, but that's the same thing with the knees that hit in the ground is Severn. That's what he's famous for. And they were hard. They hurt.
Yeah, that's brutal. I mean, that's what do you think? Do you think that should have been banned or whatever, or you probably wanted it.
I think the rules they got now are good. I mean, they're safe, and it's actually evolved into a legitimate sport. Because even when I first started fighting, I mean, for years, even when I fought the UFC the first time, both UFCs I fought at a different time limit. So it was UFC 20. I think the time limit of my fight was a 10-minute first round, 3-minute overtime. That time limit of my second fight in the UFC 21, was two 5-minute rounds. And, I fought lots of fights with no time limits. When I fought Heath Aaron, it was 2 6-minute rounds. I had a fight in Indiana, it was just 1 30-minute round. I had lots of fights that had 10-minute round with 5-minute overtime or 15-minute round with a 5-minute overtime. Nothing was the same.
Yeah. What's the longest you've ever fought for?
Well, I fought Brad Kohler for 52 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And then
that's
I
crazy.
fought Mario Roberto for 30 minutes. And that's another one of those ones where you get ripped off by decision. I mean, I fought for 30 minutes. He dropped me with a kick right away and then soccer punted me in the face. But that's the only thing he did. I dropped him with punches and kept taking him down. He couldn't get me any submission hold. And we went 30 minutes. And, I mean, I won. I clearly won the fight. He dominated the first 10 seconds. I dominated the last 29 minutes and 50 seconds. But they gave him a decision, but the judges were his students.
Oh.
So, I mean, I had it too. I had a grappling match with they called him Montana. I don't know what the hell his name, Daniel Lima. He's like a big jiu-jitsu guy. I beat him. I mean, I scored points on him. I don't know exactly how they do the point scoring, but I got side mount. I got his back. I got all the takedowns. He did something, and somehow he won 1-0. So, and the referee was the judge.
So you compete in grappling too?
Yeah, I did a lot of grappling matches. I did the Abu Dhabi over in the United Arab Emirates.
What? Really?
That's what's a funny story was, we were getting paired up against, and there was this young-looking guy who was fat and chubby. And I'm like, oh man, I hope I get that deal, but he's just fucking fat ass. And I got lucky. I'm like, they gave him to me. I'm like, no fucking way, hell yeah. And I couldn't take him down. It went 15 minutes. I mean, he had a big fat ass. I couldn't get him down. He wasn't really as strong, but he was a good wrestler. And they gave him the win on advantage. They said he was more aggressive, and I got all pissy pants and went home because we had open plane tickets that let us leave whenever. And I didn't. I could have stayed and did the absolute tournament, but I got all mad and I thought I got screwed over and left. But it was Josh Barnett. I mean, I didn't know who he was.
Oh, wow.
So, but yeah, I mean, I competed in that too, and I did a lot of grappling matches.
How strong was Josh Barnett?
He wasn't very strong. He was just a good wrestler.
Really? How many competitions do you think you've had then? If you added up all your wrestling, your grappling matches, your boxing,
Like how many matches altogether? Shit, I don't
Yeah.
know. Because I mean, I had like tough mans and amateur boxing, amateur kickboxing, pro kickboxing, a lot.
probably like 1,000.
Well, I
huh?
don't. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, if you want to count wrestling too and karate, point sparring shit, it's like I don't know, lots. And that's what I should be brain dead. And I'm here still.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because you seem totally fine. I definitely noticed like Chuck Liddell. You could kind of tell when he talks even that he seems a little bit,
Well, the thing with a lot of those guys too is like those pro boxers. Is these guys will go in the gym and they'll spar hard 6 days a week. You're like, well, great, you're wearing your headgear. That don't mean shit. That headgear can protect you against getting cut, but it's not going to protect you against those blows to your head.
Yeah.
Like, I never spar. I hate sparring. I'm like, you're going to punch me in the face. I want to get paid for it.
Oh, that's interesting.
When I spar, I mean, I'd go light with guys, and I don't do it that often, and just enough to where I know I got hit, but that'd be about it. Like, I hated when we had these local boxers that come into our gym, and one of the guys, and he's a good boxer. I mean, I don't even know, he's like 5'6" and 7'0", something like that. There's a few years ago when he came into our gym, and he's maybe 140 wanted to spar. And he went there and went balls to the wall, and like everybody's like, ooh, because if he hit us a couple good shots, like, what do I do? 230 pounds, and I can be the dickhead that knocks out this 150-pound guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was like, that's a dick move. You're like, I'll just take you down, choke you out.
So you didn't knock him out.
I just read the round and did it. Then they wanted to go another one, and I even told them, like, you go hard, I'm going to go hard on you. And I bullied him a little bit, and then he decided he didn't want to go hard anymore.
Yeah. That's a tough situation, you know. It's like, dude, what are you doing, you know?
Well, I mean, that's you get those guys. And what was there was there that guy that became like a YouTube star for a second, where he'd like challenge people to like spar with him? Then he'd
Oh yeah.
What a dick.
That guy's hilarious.
Like, beat him up or something.
That guy has major mental problems. I mean, he's oh man, what's his name? I know exactly who you're talking about because me and my buddy used to just laugh all the time because he tried to fight Deontay Wilder, I think.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Deontay like knocked him out, but
Yeah.
I thought it was Deontay like called him out.
Well, I think he was trying to say he was the best fighter ever of all time, and then he was trying to get a fight with Deontay Wilder, and then I think he said something like he was gonna rape his sister or some crazy thing like that to get him to fight him,
Oh, yeah.
and so Deontay just beat him up, you know, and the whole time he was just running away and falling down.
Well, that's the thing too. Even like, I mean, Kimbo, that's where he came from. All these fucked up just YouTube shit, and
Yeah.
I mean, Kimbo wasn't. I mean, he was tough. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, it's like, I mean, wasn't that tough?
Yeah, you know, it's funny
He
what you were saying about fights that could happen because I had a buddy who his name's DJ Linderman, and he was a really tough guy. I mean, from my area, he was like the best guy, and he was gonna be on the Ultimate Fighter, and but he's kind of like a grappler, like he's kind of like a wrestler style, and not really like a finisher. He's kind of wins a lot of decisions and stuff, just really durable. And right before the show, they were like, "Hey, sorry, you know, we decided to go with someone else," and they used Kimbo instead of him on the yeah. And it was like he would have beat Kimbo for sure, but Kimbo had that kind of that what people want to see or whatever kind of thing.
Yeah, I had the butterbean thing going for a minute too. It's like I wanted to box that guy, but well, anyways, man, I should probably run.
Yeah, we got the Ironman podcast here. It's been 2.5 hours, so I appreciate it though, man. I really appreciate you doing
no
this.
problem, man.
So you have a good day, man. Enjoy your day, and I'll send you this. It should be up.
Yeah, so I'll throw it on my social media and see if anybody cares.
Hey, what about your book? Do you have your book like a PDF? I'd like to read your book. If I don't know.
Yeah, I got like an email. Actually, if you would read it and give me, because the problem is, I think I have people that read it, and I've given them because I had it like somebody lined up to publish it.
Yeah.
Well, then what happened was they had like wanted me to like pay them because the same people who like published the UFC book.
Yeah.
Our Davies book, and they wanted me to pay them to publish. I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Right? They agreed, they liked it, but then they wanted me to pay them. I'm like, psh. So I haven't really searched for a second person, but I have people that have wanted to read it, and I've let people read it, and but none of them are fight fans. So it's like once they get into the fighting chapters, I think I lose them. Like it's gibberish to them.
Yeah. No, well, I would love to read it. I would love to read it.
Yeah, send me your email and give me some notes so maybe they think, well, I still got a chance to fix it if there's anything wrong in there.
Yeah. Have you edited it and everything so it's like ready to go?
Oh yeah, it's ready to go. And that was the thing was that's how I got it better. Like I let people read it and give me pointers, and I think that's what's made it a lot better. What they thought about how easy it was to read and to follow. I mean, the first chapter was a tough one because the stories I want to tell them, it's about me growing up, and it's I'm bopping all over in my age range, and they found it hard to follow a little bit. So that was a tough one to get right, but the rest of it's pretty easy. Yeah. But if you're not a fight fan, I think I lose you.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I'll send you my email if you can send that to me, and then I'd like to help you get it published too, because that'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. Let me just send me your email, and I'll email it to you like right now.
All right, man. I'll send it to you right now. Thanks, Travis.
All right, thanks, dude.
Have a good day. Later, bro.
Bye-bye.